The opinions expressed by tonight's guest do not represent the opinions or position of Spaced Out Radio, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with SOR Media. Listener discretion is advised. Here at Spaced Out Radio, we are about to take you higher. Broadcasting from the Rocky Mountains of Colorado to you listening around the world. This is Spaced Out Sunday with host Tessa Nicole Thomas. You can follow Tessa on our Facebook page at Spaced Out Radio, on Twitter at TessaTNT, and you can subscribe to her YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio for the archive. But we break on command 'cause women rule the world. Buckle up, space travelers. Let the countdown begin.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
It's time to go for a ride with host Tessa Nicole Thomas. I'm such a lucky guy, 'cause after all this time.
Good evening, Spaced Out Radio. Secure your tinfoil hats, buckle down tight, and hold on loosely as we soar over the rocky tops of the La Platas on a Rocky Mountain high, get sucked into the vortex of the Four Corners, and settle down snugly at mile marker 419.9 in colorful Colorado. It is Sunday, May 26th, Monday, May 27th for those of you on the East Coast and beyond, and this is Spaced Out Radio. I hope you guys had a rockin' Memorial Day weekend, an awesome day, and an even better evening. I am your host, TessaTNT, and I'm live tonight broadcasting from beautiful Bayfield, Colorado. We are 150,000 strong nightly on Spaced Out Radio Network, spacedoutradio.com, Spreaker, Paranormal Radio, TalkStream Live, as well as Deep Talk Radio, which you can find at deeptalkradio.com. We're also on Revolution Radio, UPRN 99.1 FM, WQEE 107.7 FM, UPRN in Louisiana. Revolution Radio, KZVX FM 93.7, TuneIn, KDUN Radio, 10:30 a.m. You guys, don't forget to head to our website, spacedoutradio.com, where you can peruse the Spaced Out Radio store and read the encounter online dealing with everything strange, paranormal, and odd. So tonight I have a treat for all my guys and gals out there. Tonight we will be talking to and getting to know Mr. Richard Case. Challenged alone and dared to be scared, left in alleged haunted locations alone, Richard Case, a.k.a. the Ghost Challenger, is one of the more well-known investigators in the UK and abroad. With over 35 years experience, he started investigations as a teenager and has investigated some of the most notorious places in the world, including the infamous Alcatraz. Richard has been on numerous radio shows, including BBC Radio, featured in books, magazines, and newspapers. Richard lectures around the UK. Richard has done a live performance and presented on stage at Bristol Old Vic for a special Halloween event. He spends time alone in reputedly haunted buildings around the world, which is then broadcast live on social media. He is followed live, bringing awareness to history and raising money and awareness to charity. He specializes in paranormal belief worldwide and approaches it in a skeptical way. He's a member of Society for Psychical Research, the Ghost Club, ASSAP, and he has studied and taken courses in witchcraft history and folklore, often doing talks on these subjects. He is currently studying the psychology of belief and is a member of some top organizations within the paranormal. He is always in talks with production companies and will be on Talk Radio's Paul Ross show this Halloween. Richard is currently working on a book about his many adventures. Hey, Richard, thank you so much for staying out to hang out with us.
Well, good evening, Tessa. Good evening, Colorado. It's lovely to be on. Thank you.
Oh, no worries. And we're broadcast everywhere. The show's actually originated from British Columbia, Vancouver, but we have listeners all over the world. So it's so good to have everyone here tonight.
Fantastic. And good evening or good morning, world. It's morning here in England at the moment.
Are you at 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. at the moment?
I'm actually at 5 a.m. at the moment in the morning. So a good cup of coffee, and I'm well prepared.
Good. I'm so glad. I was worried about you. I'm like, man, that's so early. Did you stay up to hang out with us, or did you get up early, or how'd that work out for you?
Well, I think being a paranormal investigator, we're kind of used to these kind of hours, really. So often, I'm at a haunted building by myself, hanging out the night. So I'm quite used to it. So yeah, I've been waiting to get on the show. So that's fine.
Awesome. So I would like to ask you a little bit more about yourself. Is there anything that we didn't cover in your bio that you would like to share with our listeners?
No, that was absolutely fine. I mean, you covered everything that, about me. I mean, feel free to ask me any questions, and I can elaborate a bit more for you.
Definitely. So, when was your first paranormal experience, and how did you first get into the field of paranormal investigation?
Yeah, well, it kind of is strange. It started from a childhood, really. My grandfather was very good at telling a nice ghost story. And I can remember staying at my grandfather's home in England in a place called Dorset. And he lived in a house which had this lovely spiral staircase. And he told me a story. He said that my grandmother's ghost had been seen at the top of the spiral staircase. And I can remember as a child going up that spiral staircase and having my hands tightly over my eyes because I thought, good grief, I don't want to see the ghost, as children do. And even though I felt like that, I also felt intrigued by it. And that kind of began the interest. And also my uncle had another home, and he kept the bedroom exactly as it was when my auntie died. And as a child, I always used to see the hairbrushes there, and I could imagine her coming back and combing her hair. So I think I've always had that kind of interest going back to childhood.
Did you ever have a personal paranormal experience, or were you going by the story that your grandfather had told you?
Yeah, I was going mainly from the story my grandfather told me. I kind of had this, it's a bit strange. When I was very young, I would get this feeling that if I went in certain areas or certain places, I mean, my mum was in hospital for a spell when I was a child, and I stayed with a lovely family. There was no, nothing wrong with the family at all. But there was a particular room in their house I didn't want to go in, and I couldn't explain it. I just had this fear of going to this particular area of the house. And I've often wanted to go back to that house and find out what the history is, or if anything's gone on there, because I've always been like that since a child. Not seeing, but feeling things.
Yeah, that's interesting that you're talking about your mother being in the hospital and getting certain feelings. I remember when my father was in the hospital and I would bring my children to visit, especially my 3-year-old would be saying things like, there's a lady reaching out of the wall trying to touch my head. And she'd also mentioned a broken man in a wheelchair that was sitting in this hallway. And people reaching out of the floor trying to grab her feet, and she'd be pulling her feet up. And we're like, what is she doing? But she actually was seeing these things happen. And it's funny how these gifts are kind of passed down genetically. Do you feel like your family is blessed in that way for past members of your family?
I think there is something in that, because I know my own mother was she was very much into that kind of thing. That my grandfather, with what he talked about as well, and his experiences, I think definitely that there's something in that. And it's also interesting with children, like you say, because I know friends of mine have talked about their children having that little friend that they know, or seeing something, when they're very young, and then when they're older, they lose it. So it's quite interesting, that subject, really, of maybe we have something when we're children and we lose that gift.
Do you feel like maybe a lot of us lose our gifts because we're kind of shut down by adults who are like, no, that's not real, so on and so forth, so it kind of closes that door, but if it's nurtured, it could grow to be something more?
I think so. I mean, because I'm a researcher, I look at everything from I'm a skeptic as well, but when I say a skeptic, there's a difference between being a skeptic and a scoffer. I mean, there are people that just do not believe, and they'll close their mind and say, well, no, it's rubbish, life doesn't go on, I've got no time for it. Well, I'm not like that. I'm a skeptic. I look at the psychology behind things and say, well, maybe it's just that when we're young, we're more susceptible to believe in these things. So I look at it that way, in the psychological sense. But then I also look at it, maybe you're right. Maybe when we're young, we are more open to it. And as we get older, we become adults, and all the things that go on when we grow up, maybe we lose that ability because of that.
Yeah, and perhaps kids are so open to it because they are so close to the veil, as they have come out of the veil to be a part of this world, and perhaps that's why they're able to see these things. I don't know, there's so many questions that we have that might not ever be answered as far as the paranormal goes.
Definitely, and I think it's been, the questions have been asked so long now. I mean, you're going back to way back in time. We've been asking these questions, and even with the technology we got now, we're still asking those questions, and will we ever get the answer to those questions? I think there are things that are getting close to finding out things that are interesting, and hopefully, maybe we will get those answers one day.
Does your family have any other sort of paranormal lore besides your grandmother brushing her hair or showing up as a spirit in your family house? Is there anything else that was shared down the line to you paranormally?
There was a story that my grandfather told me about. He called it the doppelganger. The doppelganger. When we see the double, the ghost. And he told me a story that when he was away from home, he came into the house, he didn't come into the house. The person that was looking after him at the time heard his voice downstairs, and she called to him. He answered her and everything else. And then when she went downstairs, he wasn't there. So that was a very interesting story.
So how did you first get into paranormal investigation? I read that you started as a teenager. Did somebody kind of pull you into it? Did you start doing it on your own? How exactly did you first get into the field? Yeah,
I think what it is, I think it was just a kind of, I've always had it in me, that interest, that need to know. And it's so difficult to explain where that comes from. There was that interest as a child. And then when I got attracted to the magazines that came out. There was a magazine in the UK called Unexplained. I read the magazine, and it talked about EVP and things like that, and electric voice phenomena, and recordings of people that had once lived, like Winston Churchill. And I thought, well, I'm going to get a tape recorder. I'm going to try that myself. And it really kind of just developed. It was there in me, I think, to just get involved with it. It was always a passion.
And it definitely can be somewhat addictive. Like, once you find something, you just want to find more. And like I was saying earlier, there's so many unanswered questions. Did you find anything on your first EVPs that you were trying to record?
When I first did the EVPs, funnily enough, I didn't get a lot of. I mean, I had the noise that everyone gets, and everyone gets excited when suddenly they hear, well, we all know of investigators that have recorded something, played it back, and all you get is a kind of noise, and they'll say, well, it's telling you you're going to die, and you're thinking, well, no, it's not saying anything at all. It's just a bit of noise. But one thing that did happen to me, I went to a graveyard and recorded, and I remember an old medium friend of mine saying, when you ask, always say you go with respect. And I learned how to communicate, properly from that. And I went there with this old recorder, and I recorded and said, I come with respect. Played it back, and you could hear the bird songs and everything else. But as I'm saying, I come with respect, there was a voice as clear as I'm saying this to you now, saying, we know. And it said, we know, just like that, And I played it back to other people just to make sure it wasn't me. And they all said, clear as day, that's a voice clear as day saying, we know. And there was no noise, it was easy to distinguish. So that was quite groundbreaking for me. That was very interesting.
What was the very first paranormal investigation that you went on? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, the first one I ever really kind of went on was going back in Bristol. There's an very old pub in Bristol where they said that Blackbeard's ghost was seen. The ghost, the pirate Blackbeard, who's known as Edward Teach. He was born in Bristol, and I've actually been to a home where he was born. And there was a pub and a little basement in the pub where the ghost had been seen. And I can remember going there, and it was really my first time kind of like doing something completely on my own. And I'll be honest with you, the first time I did it, the slightest noise, or even if just a little bit of a light flashed, I would jump a mile. My everything was on I was on tender hooks. What's going to happen? What's going to, it was exciting, but what's that noise? Is that a ghost? And yeah, it was all like that. When I first began it.
Did you start your own group, or you do this basically on your own for the most part?
Yeah, I did a long time have a team with me, but then I decided that I wanted to do it differently, and I decided to become. I mean, how it became. I remember seeing he's a famous guy that most people know. He now lives in Israel, called Uri Geller, and he's known for bending spoons. And I went to visit him in his home, and he said to me, there's so many groups, Richard. He said, why don't you do something on your own? And that kind of gave me the idea. Then I thought, well, maybe I need to do this on my own. And at the time, I was calling the group Ghost Challengers, and I went away and I thought, well, what am I going to call myself? And I suddenly thought, well, just use your name. But then I thought of the Ghost Challenger, and that's where that come from. And I thought, well, it would be interesting to be in a building on my own as a skeptic, saying, well, if there is a ghost, I'll go there and see what I can find. And that's where it all kind of came from. But yes, in the beginning, I did work with a group of people. I still sometimes, go with the group of people if we do private little investigations, just for studying purposes and that.
Someone in the chat room was saying the spoons are pre-bent. Did you see him actually bend a spoon telekinetically, or how did that work? Yeah,
I understand completely where that person's coming from, what's saying that, because believe me, I'm a skeptic. I actually had the spoon in my hand, and believe it or not, I actually went to bend the spoon myself, and it was a proper spoon, and it wasn't bent when I saw it. I got the spoon in my home now, actually, and he signed it afterwards. And believe me, I saw it bend. Now, I'm still a skeptic. I'm not sure how he did it. I still kind of think maybe, it was. I can see where they come from pre-bent, but the way this was bent, it was bent quite an angle. So yeah, unless you actually see it for yourself, it is very, very easy to think maybe it's some. I'm sure there's some trickery involved with it, but yeah.
When he was bending the spoon while it was in your hand, did you feel like any sort of energy change or get a ringing in the ears? Did you get anything like that, or did it just happen?
Nothing at all. Nothing at all. He just held the spoon, put his finger above it, and said bend, and it just appeared to me that the spoon slightly bent, and then there it was, bent from a straight spoon. So yeah, even now I try to think back and think, was I hypnotized in some way, or what happened?
That's very interesting. Have you met any other really highly known paranormal people in the field, and what have you learned from them?
There's a lot of people. I mean, I know Kieran O'Keefe, who's off Most Haunted, and he's now left the Most Haunted TV show in the UK. But he's a parapsychologist, and I'm a member of his online school of parapsychology, and I learn a lot from him. So he's somebody I look up to a lot. And also, I guess I look to the people in the field. One person particularly is Chris French, who's a psychologist in the UK. I look up to him a lot, and I guess I would say that you learn from them how to kind of to know the business, to know the stuff, know what you're doing and what you're studying.
That is so awesome, and it's good to have mentors and people to kind of guide you.
It is, yeah.
We were talking about how we had experiences early on in life, and sometimes you don't know which way to go with it, and to have mentors really gives you direction and teaches you so many different things, and I'm still learning. Have you ever met anybody who claimed to be a paranormal expert or expert in the field of paranormal?
If I did, I would probably doubt that very much. I mean, because why I say that, and that's not knocking anybody. I think you can be an expert with your knowledge in knowing all the different kinds of hauntings and all about the different kinds of ways of investigating. But I think to say you're an expert in the field is that there are no experts, because we are still learning. We are still finding out things ourselves.
You're talking to Robin?
Yeah, hi, Robin.
So, you said that you went to a graveyard and you got an EVP that said that they know they know or something like that.
The word was "we know." I mean, I said I come with respect, and what was unusual was it was like it was answering the question. It said "we know."
Okay. Because I know a paranormal team that I became friends with, but this is before I knew them, and they went into this old elementary school that was built in 1902.
Yeah.
Or actually, 1908. And there's this fan room that has a dark spirit, and they did EVP down there.
Sure.
And they got an EVP down there that said, it came out and said they know.
Yeah, that's interesting what you're saying there, Robin, because when you said that, those words, then I for a minute I thought we had heard they know, but it was definitely as clear as day, and I played it back to other people, and it was "we know," as if answering a question. But that's funny you should say those words, because another time where at this same location, a medium went there and said, "I believe they know," as a group, collective group. So yeah, I've come across something like that.
So yeah, that's the reason why I called in.
No, it's great, Robin. Yeah.
Yeah, just to say that.
Yeah, well, thank you. That's interesting. It's we just wish we knew more. I wish we knew what they know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for calling in, Sir Robin. It was
Yeah.
great to hear from you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is interesting because, you get these voices, you get the thing, and it's very difficult for me being a researcher to know what the answer is, but then I respect a medium or somebody that's with me to sometimes give me the answer to what they feel they're trying to answer.
Yeah. And I've actually been down there also. So,
Whereabouts is that, Robin?
what did you say?
Whereabouts is that you went to? Can you say where it was, or?
Oh, this place is in Washington State.
Oh, Washington, yeah.
So, and I've been down there, and I actually got a direct answer. Like, usually you get EVP, but
Yeah.
I got a physical answer by banging on the air duct.
Yeah.
I asked how many are there, and I got four bangs on the air duct.
It's very good when you get that. Very interesting. I did this location, and we've asked out, and we've had knocks. And when I've been a skeptic, I said, okay, give me some more knocks. I've had a similar thing to you, where they've knocked to say how many, and it's quite unusual. Yes, people don't believe it, but when you actually hear it, it's very, very good. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the reason why I called in, just to mention that.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really awesome experience, and I love gaining all this new knowledge and learning more and gaining all this different evidence that you can on different sites. Sometimes it's really quiet, and sometimes you get hit after hit after hit, and it's just amazing. But thanks so much for sharing your experience, Sir Robin. It was so great to hear from you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Robin.
Have a good day.
And you. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Kat in the chat room, by Robin, was asking, when the spoon bent, was it in your hand, and did he have any contact with it, or was he away from you? How exactly did that work, Richard?
Yeah, he actually, he was actually, I was holding the spoon, and he had his finger above the spoon, so that's how it worked at the time. I have heard this theory about the spoon already been bent, and I question myself to this day, was it already bent? And I wish I'd brought my own spoon along, which I knew wouldn't be bent, because the mind, we can be tricked so easily, and this is what these tricks are about, and that's no disrespect to Yuri, but you've got to look at everything as a skeptic sometimes, and look at other reasons maybe why it appeared to be bent, or why it was bent,
Yeah, somebody else in the chat room had mentioned, I would have brought my own spoon, but you kind of don't think about that when you're going to a place to meet someone. Let's bring our own spoon, and they provide it to you. Did he have contact with it, or his finger was just above it?
His finger was just above it. So yeah, all I can say is when I held the spoon, I'm holding a pen now in front of me, and it was as rigid as a pen, and I even remember sort of like trying to bend the spoon physically with my other hand before he did it, and it was a rigid spoon, so it was quite uncanny, to be honest.
Was it somewhat mind-blowing for you? Were you just like, what's going on, or how is this happening?
Yeah, it was mind-blowing. I was thinking, was it preheated? Did he have something in his fingers to, all sorts of things went through my mind, because, and he picked up straight away and said, you're very skeptical, Richard. I said, I am, Yuri, that's me. I am a skeptic. But he also did something else, which was interesting. He did this where he got me to draw a picture. Now, drawing is not one of my. Shall I say this? I'm not an excellent drawer, and I drew what is known in England as a cricket. Well, I drew a wine bottle, but it looked more like a cricket bat in England. You know,
right?
It was a terrible drawing of a wine bottle, and I remember looking at it and thinking, "This is awful drawing," but never mind. So I said, and he's there with his back to me, and he drew exactly the same, and he put them together, and they both matched. And you know, I don't know how he did that. I thought, did he have an earpiece? Was there a camera behind me? And I went through all the skeptical things, but couldn't find any evidence of anything like that. So that again was something that was unusual and a great to experience.
It is, and you know, I don't find anything wrong with being skeptical. I believe it's healthy to go into someplace with a skeptical frame of mind and have things happen to open it up. Did you feel any sort of heat on the spoon or anything like that? Like you're saying he could have heated it up, this and that, or did it feel like a cold, normal spoon? Yeah,
that's the other thing. It was a cold, normal spoon, and you know, that was the other unusual thing about it.
That's so awesome, and what a thing to experience. And I do believe that we all have different amazing gifts, and what a gift to have. I wonder what you could do with that. Did he do anything else besides bending spoons? Did he ever move anything or build upon it, going beyond spoon bending?
No, he showed me the famous car, because the car's got all the bent spoons that he's done for various USA presidents and prime ministers and Michael Jackson and all the famous people that he's bent spoons for. So I managed to see the car with all the bent spoons on, and you know, their autographs on it. So that was unique.
Super cool. So we were talking earlier about when you go out and you do make money, you donate it to charity. Can you tell us a little bit about the charities you donate to and how you're able to help people through your paranormal investigation?
Yeah, one of the charities that I bring awareness to is the Dame Vera Lynn Children with Cerebral Palsy. Now, Dame Vera Lynn was known for singing in the war, We'll Meet Again, and the White Cliffs of Dover. And I actually met Dame Vera Lynn, and I went to visit the school for the children with cerebral palsy and the work they do with those children in helping them. And what I do is bring awareness to that, and also we have a local church conservation trust which keeps the old buildings open, historical places, and it's bringing awareness to those histories, but also raising money for those local places, because sadly a lot of those places aren't kept as they should be in the UK anymore, and a lot of it is run by charitable events, and that's what I do. And also one of my dearest ones is the mental health, you know, helping, because I used to be a police officer, and helping people, you know, with mental health and those sort of things through charity.
That's really admirable, and I really admire you for doing that, and what a wonderful thing to do. Kat in the chat room was saying Yuri Tech involves having a second party hold the spoon while he rubs or works the weakened spot. He didn't touch it at all, right? You said his hands were just above the spoon.
Yeah. No, I know what it's Kat, wasn't it? I know what Kat means by that, because that is one of the things that I was expecting, and I have seen that happen. Because I think it's as James Randi, the famous James Randi, did that, where he rubs a spoon and, you know, it's already bent and pre-bent, and then it just falls to pieces. But on that particular time that he did it for me, there was no contact. No.
That's pretty awesome, and it makes you wonder, like, how did that happen? But I do believe that we all have our own gifts, and it's pretty normal for people to try to disprove it. What is one of your favorite locations that you've ever investigated, and what happened on that investigation?
I think I've got so many. It's so difficult to say because I think really I've been all over the world because I've been lucky and blessed to do that, to travel all over the world and go to many places. I mean, there was a place that I really enjoyed, and that was in Barbados, and it's called the Chase Vault, and it's a burial vault in a place called Austin's in Christchurch in Barbados. I think I pronounced that right. It's early in the morning, but basically what happened? The coffins were all moved around. They were put in the vault, and when somebody went to open the vault to place more coffins in, all these coffins seemed to be moved around. Now, a lot of people said it's easily earthquakes, environmental reasons. Those things have moved. But the one thing I did was I spent time alone in that vault, and that was quite an eerie, creepy place. But it was quite memorable.
Can you tell us a little bit more in detail about that? Kind of paint a picture for us.
Yeah, I mean, in Barbados, that's basically it's all I can picture is. I don't know if you've seen a burial vault at all, but it's like going down some steps into the vault where the coffins were, and that's where I went and was left just completely by myself in that area. There was no coffins in there by then. It's now a well-known place people go and visit. So it was just I think really the thought that it was a burial vault and the fact you were left there by yourself.
Did you get any sort of feelings or messages or anything while you were down there, or was it really quiet and reverent?
It was quiet, reverent, and I think a lot of it's psychological as well, because a lot, and this is why I believe a lot of what we do sometimes can be psychological, because you're going into these areas and you think, right, I'm in a graveyard, in a burial vault, people are buried here, these things have been seen to be moved around when they've been here. Is there some kind of poltergeist activity? So you've got that kind of expectant kind of feeling already. But no, it was very quiet and very, very normal there.
Kat in the chat room was going back to the whole hypnosis thing, and she's like, the thing is, the spoon was never there. So there's a thought, but I mean, hypnosis, have you ever voluntarily gone under hypnosis?
A friend of mine was very easily hypnotized, and I said, okay, try and hypnotize me, and this person couldn't put me under hypnotism and said that because I'm too skeptical or whatever, they couldn't do that to me. But that's interesting what she said, because I had an experience a while back, and it was basically my father-in-law passed away, and I was naturally upset, like anyone is when he passed away, and I remember he didn't leave a will, so I was kind of like thinking to myself, oh great, his name was Ken. I said, oh Ken, I've got to sort all this out. I wish you were here so we could give me a helping hand to sort everything out. And suddenly my iPhone started ringing, and but I'll get to the point in hypnosis in a minute. Suddenly my iPhone started ringing, and it was ringing the local crematorium, and I thought, wow, that's spooky. So I looked at my phone and thought, is it Siri? And it wasn't Siri. And was it the last number, phoned that I telephoned and that. Now, thinking back to the event, as a skeptic, there is a thing that when we're suffering from grief, we can go through like a hallucination and a hypnosis almost. We can, say you're falling asleep, you get you can hallucinate and things. So yeah, I mean, we're all prone to that sort of thing, and I'm pretty sure I was in my right mind when that spoon bent, but was I? Did he have the gift to hypnotize me? When this phone rang that time, was I stricken by grief that I hallucinated the whole thing? So it's a question. Yeah, it's a good question.
Kat was also wondering, what has been one experience that triggered you the flight or fight response?
Yeah, there was. I was put into. There's a place called Skirrid Inn, which is in England, and they used to hang people for stealing sheep. So very minor offences, and it wasn't like murder or anything like that. It could be just very small things. And the hangman's noose used to hang from the staircase all the way down, and you could see it. Now I was left alone in that pub or bar area, and they locked me in, left me completely on my own for the night. And one particular evening I was there, and the hangman and I'd done the event before and I was fine on my own, but this particular evening I felt a little bit uneasy, and the hangman is supposed to be seen coming down the stairs, and I could hear this noise and everything else, and the whole evening didn't feel right. And that particular evening I did have that fright and flight kind of thing. I suddenly heard what sounded like footsteps coming up the stairs, and I just wanted to run. I just wanted to get out of the place and go. And I remember just shutting the door on the room and just staying there with the lights on until somebody came the next morning. And that was a real moment that I panicked.
It's really scary and kind of hard when that does happen. And somewhat exciting as well. And that's kind of where the thrills and chills come in. And we were talking about that earlier as well. A lot of teams go in just for that, just for the thrills and chills, and they leave a mess for those of us that have to come behind and clean it up. When you go into a place, do you do anything to help it? If it's up to the person that owns it or the property owner or whatnot, or do you just go in to find out what's there, or what exactly is your policy when you go in on an investigation?
Well, firstly, it's very important to define what I mean by ghost challenger, because a lot of people get that wrong sometimes. They think because I'm known as the ghost challenger, they think that I go in and I challenge spirit in the wrong way. They think I go in there and say, if you're here, come on, do your worst and everything. No, it's not like that. What the name ghost challenger stands for, the fact that I challenge it in a skeptical way to say, well, maybe there isn't a ghost, maybe there is a ghost, and I look at things. So I'll get that on the table first of all. But when I go into a building, I always go with respect, because if we are investigating something like this, then these were people that once lived like you and I. I myself am a researcher, and I always will be. So as far as sending someone to the light or anything like that, that's something that a medium could advise on, and someone that's more spiritually in tune with that, and that's somebody I would get advice from. If I went to a place and it was particularly nasty, then I would turn to my good friend who's a Kim, who's a medium, and get advice from her and see what her take on it was. And if I So yeah, I mean, you got to have an open mind on all those things, and be aware that that if these people once lived, that you need to treat it with respect and that.
And I agree with that. Respect is, of the utmost importance. When you go into a place, you're basically dealing with a person who was once here, like you were saying before. When you go on an investigation, are there any certain tools that you bring, or do you just use your feelings and your gut instinct? What do you do on an investigation?
Yeah, when I go as a solo ghost challenger, it goes back to the old, if you think of the old film, and I can't think what the film's called now, Woman in Black. If you think of the old traditional, go in there with a lantern, been on my own and just experience it. It goes back to that. I don't use any of the modern gadgets they have now. I'm not saying that they don't help. Some do, some don't. I'm a little bit skeptical about K2 meters and all those kind of things, because I know they can go off for just the slightest thing sometimes.
PBR was asking, are you Wiccan or anything along those lines?
No, I'm not. I have friends that are, and total respect for people that, of the pagan religion and that. But I myself, I'm not. Having said that, though, I did find out going back through my ancestors that my great, I think it is grandfather, one of them was what was known as a cunning man, which is basically connected to witchcraft. Yeah.
That's awesome that you were able to find that, because a lot of that
Yeah.
was so covered up.
Yeah.
So it was a male member of your family that was into Wiccan or into witchcraft?
It was a male member of the family, because I found out from my grandfather's side the surname, and went back and found he was born in the same area, and then I just went through ancestry.com and picked it all up from there. So that was quite eye-opening for me. But also good, also awesome as well.
Yeah, it's pretty mind-blowing and, like you said, awesome when you do find certain details like that, and it kind of gives you a backup to what you do. Even though you don't partake in such things, you still have those certain gifts that kind of come from that, perhaps.
Yeah.
So you said you've investigated all over the world. In the UK, what are some other places you've gone?
So, I've been to New York. There's a place called St. Mark's Church in the Barry, which is in Manhattan. And I went there. Now, basically, they've had stories about the bells ringing. So you can imagine in the middle of Manhattan, the middle of the night, the bells ringing for no reason. And it was the reason they think it is because there was a Dutch colonial governor there that was who basically built land on where the Indians used to live, and I think he wasn't a very nice individual. And I visited there and just collected the stories and went around, and that nothing particular happened, but it was interesting to do. And also I've been to Salem. I've been to visit Salem, Hawaii, Australia, just all over the world, really, to visit and experience different locations. And there's a place in Australia called the Manly Quarantine Station, which is in Sydney. And before people used to go to live in Australia, they have to go into the quarantine before they were, made citizens of Australia. And there's tales of ghosts and all sorts there. And I was lucky to be shown around and left on my own there to experience it.
I also read that you had gone to Alcatraz. Did you have any major experiences there paranormally?
Yeah, I went to. I was lucky enough to be told by the people in Alcatraz where the main area was where things happened, and left on my own in one of the cells there. Unfortunately, nothing. I didn't get any. I did try recording with EVP and various things. I didn't get anything from it, but the experience itself, was enough. I felt it did feel. You probably know what I mean by this, Tessa. Even though you're still learning, you go to a location, and you feel nothing. It feels flat. You don't feel anything. Then you go to another location, you think, this doesn't feel quite right. And the more you do that, the more you do this, that seems to be something you pick up. And when I went to Alcatraz, I definitely felt, that there was something there. And but it wasn't there when I was there, because that's the thing. Then it's not. They're not on show, and it doesn't happen when we want it to. All the time.
And it's funny because a lot of people believe that paranormal investigations are only left for night, which I do agree that a lot of this background noise and everything is kind of cut out during the evening. But one of my most active investigations was in the early morning hours. And it just makes you think, they're here all the time and they communicate when they can. And this particular ghost shared, they were calling her Emmy, but she said Kate Johnson, Walter Intention Death, Sharp Tool, so on and so forth. And come to find out, she was a prostitute back in the 1800s named Kate Johnson. She fell in love with a firefighter. he snuck her on the train to elope, and being that she was a working girl, the brakeman had been with her as well, and when he found them together, a fight ensued, and the brakeman had stabbed the firefighter to death. She tried to carry on with her life, but she ended up taking her own life and was basically stuck there on the train car because she was Catholic and believed in purgatory. Do you find that people's beliefs in the afterlife put them basically where they're stuck or where they're at?
It's one theory. I mean, I don't particularly find that. I mean, do you mean if what somebody's done in their previous life will mean they're stuck in a particular area? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, if a person believes in purgatory or hell or some other thing, do you believe that they somewhat create that, or they stick themselves? Like, her fiancé was killed on that particular train car where she was stuck since the 1800s.
Well, there is there's definitely evidence that where we have the hauntings, that could be a possible answer to it. I mean, you only got to look at some of the places like if you look at I'm trying to think now. Sorry, the Empire State Building. There was a lady that jumped from the Empire State Building, committed suicide, and it's been said that her ghost has been seen there ever since, and it's to do with an affair that went wrong. And when I went to the Empire State Building, no one actually has seen her recently, so there's no recent experience. But yeah, I mean, if something means something to someone, I believe that possibly will be the reason. I mean, because often people say to me, I go to graveyards, I go looking for ghosts, and I say to people, well, hang on a minute. I said, the last place I want to be is where I was buried. If I was going to come back as a ghost, I want to be at the local pub or somewhere a bit more exciting. I don't want to be where my body is. But one of the churches I do means a lot to the particular family, because it was a church that belonged to the rich family next door. So there's every reason that they would be there, because the emotions, the feelings, the things that happen in their lives, that church meant a lot to them. So yeah, there are things I believe that can mean that those places are particularly haunted.
Yeah, and my kids get scared a lot, and I'm like, hey, we're all going to be ghosts someday. I had a friend who had like 5 heart attacks, and he said he never had any afterlife experiences. It was just dark and boring, and nothing ever happened. So I think he's somewhat of a skeptic as well. But my thought on that is perhaps it wasn't his time, so he either didn't experience anything, or he was left to not remember anything that he had experienced. So like we were talking earlier about experts in the field, I think there are a lot of people that are really educated and have had a lot of experiences, but in this field I think it's impossible basically to be an expert. What are your thoughts on that? Yeah,
I agree. I think it is difficult to be a real expert and know the answers, because we have a lot of faith in people that have the gift of mediumship, and they seem to be, because they can communicate in that way to those that have passed on. They probably do have a lot of the answers. So if anyone's going to be an expert, particularly on that, it would be somebody that can communicate to the dead, if they indeed can, because you still look at that in a skeptical way. But I think when you're saying about the friend not having experiences and things like that, I think the difficulty is that my own wife, I mean, she's very much a skeptic, but she's completely doesn't believe at all. Now, she heard that voice we know as clear as day as I did, and she still said, well, I heard it, but I don't believe it's a ghost, So there's going to always be those that will just completely say, or experience things, but say, no, it's impossible. When you die, you die. I'm not going to believe this, And they could see, clock come off the mantelpiece and suddenly float across the room, and they still wouldn't believe, So yeah, it's quite interesting with people, and even though I'm a skeptic, and I still wonder if there's life after death, and I've had experiences, and I still can just about say, well, maybe it was this, maybe it was that, but more and more it's getting more difficult with what we do to think, well, there must be something going on there.
Yeah, and during my years of experiencing things and then investigating and finding things, I find comfort in the fact that there is something beyond this life than just being in a dark hole, being eaten by bugs and worms. And I think somehow that death is actually the beginning of another realm, because I feel like we're spiritual beings having a human experience. And someone had asked, are you a spiritual person?
I am... I'm on the fence at the moment with that one, because I'm still looking at the science and everything else behind it. But I was brought up in a very religious family, and I know what people that claim to be Christian or claim to be devout this, devout that, how sometimes, unfortunately, they can be very hypocritical with religion. You only got to look back to religion and what it did to the poor women years ago, persecuted the witches. It wasn't very Christian what they did. They hung them or burnt them and things like that. So I would say that if I was ever going to choose a religion, I would be more spiritual than I would be anything else, because I believe that religion can sometimes be the downfall of people. Organized religion is not always very spiritual. Yeah, I'm still looking for the answers. I'm still wondering if everything goes on. I'm hoping it does. I think like anyone, like you said, we don't want to think that we're all going to be eaten by worms and that's the end. We all want our loved ones to go on. We all want to know there's something, and that's what we're all looking at for answers to find out.
Well, on that note, we have to go to our first break, so you guys don't go anywhere. We'll be right back right after these messages.
Looking for nighttime adventure? Old school radio that delves into everything out of the norm? Then check us out at Spaced Out Radio. This is Dave Scott. Every Monday through Friday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, we're going to take you on a wild ride ranging from conspiracies to true crime and every ghost, alien, and Sasquatch story in between. We're always live, and we're always interactive with you. So join us at spacedoutradio.com, where together, we own the night.
Hey, guess what? You can now get your brand new Spaced Out Radio swag at spacedoutradio.com. We've brought the store back with all new items for you to pick out and pick up for yourself, your family, or friends. T-shirts, hoodies, hats, we got it all. All you have to do is head to our website and click on Store. Choose what you want and it's shipped to you. The Spaced Out Radio store is right there for you. Come shop with us at spacedoutradio.com. Then we can own the night together.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Canada's largest UFO conference is ready to roll in Toronto this September 21st and 22nd at the Alien Cosmic Expo. This year is about the experience. Listen to the stories of Dave Scott, Travis Walton, Paula Harris, Grant Cameron, Ryan Stacey, Richard Dolan, Leslie Mitchell-Clark, and more. Get your tickets now at aliencosmicexpo.com.
Coming soon to our website, spacedoutradio.com, is the SOR Space Travelers Club. For just $5 a month, you can get into a private area on our site where you can hang with other listeners in our chat room, post in our forum, and check out a bunch of exclusive content and store that won't be found anywhere else, including a nightly after-show party with Dave. It's going to be the best $5 a month you're going to spend. The SOR Space Travelers, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Are you tired of being blocked, shadow banned, or placed in jail for simply posting your thoughts on social media? Social Media Freedom can take care of that for you. Social Media Freedom is the newest and one of the best free new apps that allows you the freedom to post what you want, when you want. It takes seconds to download from your app store. Come join the tribe at Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
If you're heading to Vancouver, make sure you stop by the official bar of Spaced Out Radio, the Moose Vancouver. It's the place to party in YVR. At the corner of Nelson and Granville, the Moose Vancouver is always up to speed with a kitchen staff that serves great food. All food on the menu, $6.95 to $8.95. There's a reason the Moose Vancouver is recognized as one of the hottest spots on the West Coast. Get your horns up for the Moose Vancouver. Come get spooked at the 4th Annual Forest Moon Paracon in Cedar-Woolley, Washington, Saturday, September 28th. UFOs, ghosts, aliens, Bigfoot. Speakers include Mike Morin and Jason Jordan, R. Keith Andrews, and Dave Scott from Spaced Out Radio, and so much more. There will be workshops and a VIP roundtable. Get early bird tickets now at fmparacon.com.
A timepiece is a reflection of who you are, and what better way to show off the real you than with an Escape watch? Escape is a lifestyle brand accessorizing your days and nights. Choose to escape and create the life of discovery that you deserve. Dream, play, unite with your own personalized Escape watch. Head to escapewatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
Every night on Spaced Out Radio, we have places for you to hang out. Hi, this is Carl. Join our SOR Space Travelers group on Facebook for live chat. On Twitter, using hashtag Spaced Out Radio. You can also join us in our Spreaker chat room. Check us out on Instagram at Dave Scott SOR. All of our archives are free on YouTube at Spaced Out Radio. By the way, I'll be watching you at your window until you do. Bye!
Hello, this is your guitar man, Ron Bumblefoot Thal, and I have to tell you, I love the response I get for Little Brother is Watching from Spaced Out Radio fans. It's amazing how music can inspire and make people think deeper about what's going on in the supernatural world. You can head over to my website, bumblefoot.com, to check out my music, my guitar workshops, my touring, even check out some of the hot sauces that I'm working on. And make sure you keep on listening, because with Spaced Out Radio, you know Little Brother is watching.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
You can follow Tessa on Twitter at TessaTNT, on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio, and our website is spacedoutradio.com. Now, back to Spaced Out Weekend host, Tessa Nicole Thomas.
Hear the sound again, voices dancing in my head, smile wide, drowning slowly as the echoes rise.
Welcome back, everyone, and thanks so much for tuning in this evening. We are joined by Richard Case, the Ghost Challenger. Welcome back, Richard. So great to have you this evening.
Yeah, thank you, and great to be back. Thanks.
Or for you this morning. So yeah, thank you so much again for staying up with us and or getting up so early with us. I know it can be difficult. For me, I'm not a morning person because I'm more of a night owl, and I'd rather stay up to a certain amount of time.
I think I'm the same, Tessa, on that. I'm more of a night person than a morning person. I think when you do what we do, going out looking for ghosts or ghost hunting or paranormal research, whatever you want to call it, I think we are definitely more night people than morning people.
For sure. So, Ghost Challenger, how did you come up with that name?
Well, like I said, it was when I met Uri Geller that he said about being solo, and because I'd already had a team before, and I had named them Ghost Challengers because I used it for challenging if there really are ghosts, or is it just in our minds? And that's where that name come from. And then when I did it on my own, I thought the Ghost Challenger, just doing it myself. So Ghost Challenger really is challenging, going to a place and saying, is this really a ghost, or is it just something that can be explained? Because often, people will say to you, I've got a place that's haunted, and you'll go there and it's far from haunted. And that's where it's very difficult then, because in a kind way, you've got to tell the person, well, best will in the world, I don't think this place has got, I think I can explain it. I'll give you an example. There was a church where people were saying that they were seeing the silhouettes of children appearing at a certain time in the window. And everyone was highly convinced that was the haunting of that church. And it was only when I went there to visit with a skeptical mind, but putting my skeptical mind aside and been open-minded, I looked, and every time the silhouettes come up, I noticed it was the tombstones outside. And as it lit up, I noticed that in the far distance there was a house, and its light went on at the same time. So bang goes the ghost children in the window. You can explain what it is, and when I challenge, I say, I'll go there and look at things and see if there really is a ghost, or if there really is a haunting, and just go with that healthy skeptical mind.
Yeah, and it's very good to go in skeptical. Do you ever do your homework before you go in, or do you want to go in without any information and see what you find and then follow up to see if your information that you found is accurate? How exactly do you go about an investigation as far as that?
Both ways. I do it both ways. Sometimes I'll go there. I don't want to know nothing about what's gone on in the place and find out for myself. Other times, what I tend to do, there's a place that I'm doing at the moment, and I'm doing this on a regular basis, and that's where I do take people with me, because it's not really the Ghost Challenge is more of a unique thing for people to watch. They can watch me live on my own and raise money for events and things like that. But when I do like what I call a more serious investigation, when I'm out with people, then we'll stay at a location and we can be there for years investigating that location. And there will come a point where we will do some research on the building to see if it matches up with what we're finding.
Yeah, that's the way I like to do it. I like to go in cold and then find out if the information I found is accurate, and it's kind of like a boost when you do find, hey, we got it. Sometimes you do, and sometimes they're really quiet and they don't even want to communicate. They just want you to go on and make you think it's not haunted, or perhaps it's not, because not every place is haunted. PBR is asking, will Richard stay overnight at Hell House?
Yeah, I would if because I've been over the States, and I would love to do it. Yeah, definitely love to do it. I'd love to, I want to do the Waverley Asylum as well over, so all those places. Yeah, if someone wants to accommodate, I would certainly do it.
Yeah, that would be awesome. And Waverley, I think, is on everybody's list of places to go, as well as Alcatraz. I didn't get to go. A friend of mine did, and I house sat for her, and she brought me back this really cool t-shirt or sweatshirt hoodie, and people are like, hey, you got to go there? And I'm like, no, not yet, but it's on my bucket list. There's so many places I'd love to go, but I'm kind of stuck here. There's so many things to do here and so many people asking for help. Do you have people reach out to you for help for personal cases?
I do occasionally. I tend to be very careful going into people's homes because sometimes you can do more harm than good because, it depends on the person. I mean, obviously, you've got to be very careful the clientele when you deal with homes because, being an ex-police officer, I know that some people sometimes call out for help not for the right reasons, shall I say, sometimes because they're lonely. Sometimes they may have mental health problems. So you've got to be very careful what you deal with and how you deal with things. So, but I will go to places sometimes and investigate, in homes.
And I have found that a few times it's people are lonely and they kind of dredge up things that they want to put out there for people to come and help them when there actually isn't anything going on there. Have you had a lot of those cases? Or for me, it's been very few, but there are people out there that are like that. How many of those have you had?
Yeah, I've had quite a few of those where they just want to talk and they're very convinced they've got something going on. And this is where you have to be very ethical and very careful because, I had there was one I had, and sadly, the individual was saying that they were haunted by something. And, if you looked into it in more depth, you could think that maybe something traumatic had happened to that person by somebody. And you've got to be so careful and make sure that they get the right aftercare and the right support to direct them to the proper help. It may not be a ghost. It may be some psychological need they got.
And it's funny because there are some people out there and you give them advice on how to help the situation. One case I had, this girl, her husband was being attacked. She had been attacked. Different things were happening around her house. And we felt like it stemmed from past trauma she had in her life. And she was actually causing these things to happen. We asked her to go and get some psychological help as far as seeing a psychologist and getting past these things in her past in order to get rid of this entity that had basically formed in her home and was attacking mostly her husband but occasionally herself. Have you found that people do cause their own paranormal trauma in their houses?
Most definitely, and this is where it goes to the psychology of sometimes the belief. It's a little bit like if somebody says to you, I'm going to put, one of the things about voodooism, voodoo, is that, people, a lot of the problems sometimes can be the belief that somebody's put a curse on you. There may not be a curse. Nobody may never put a curse, and there may be no truth in that a curse could do anything. But it's that belief in something that can cause the problems. I know that when sometimes people are a bit loathed about people won't touch the Ouija board and they're frightened of the Ouija board. And, I still, as a skeptic and think in a scientific way, I think maybe a lot of the Ouija board's down to idiomotor, that you're actually moving the glass yourself, and there's nothing to fear from it. Not that I would, just say to somebody, just get on the Ouija board and mess around with it. I'm just saying that I think that it can be explained by that. But a lot of people then think, well, I'm going to go off and I've just used that, and if I fall down and hurt my leg, it's because I've just done that, when they probably would have just fallen down and hurt their leg anyway.
Right. They try to make it something other than what it is.
Yeah.
Have you ever used a Ouija board? Have you had experience with that?
I've done it in a very controlled way. I've done it with people, and I've done it to because sometimes I teach investigators, and I teach them about the fact that, you know, a lot of the time that when you move a glass around on a board, it's actually you that you're actually doing it without being aware of it. And to prove the point, I've actually blindfolded them, and when they've actually done it again, nothing's made any sense. So that's kind of clarified that. But you know, I don't tend to bother with those things, no, because you know, to me, it's going back to the old parlor tricks and the old ways. So no, not a lot of the time, no.
That's very interesting that you did that with the blindfolds. I'd never thought of doing that. I was raised basically LDS from the age of 7 on, and you know, they were totally against D&D and playing with the Ouija board, so on and so forth. And then when I joined the military, we were locked down for Hurricane Bonnie, and I believe it was 98. And we had been passing this Ouija board back and forth from the female MRP to the male MRP and so on and so forth. And the girls got on there one night and were playing on it, and it was from this guy, Private Black, who had actually gotten killed during exercises. And so we kind of inherited his board, and they're like, hey, you want to get on here? And I watched for a little while, and then I got on there and I was like, can I talk to my mom? And it told me no. And I was like, well, you know, forget you, I'm going to go take a shower. And then when I came back out, everybody was gone, but the Ouija board was on my rack. And so I started to use it, and it just went off really, really fast. And I believe it was my mom coming through. She said all my siblings' names, my dad's name, tell them I'm okay, everything's okay. And then she told me different things about the afterlife. She could be where she wanted, when she wanted, and she could, you know, basically fly or, you know, go places she'd never been. Yeah. So that was very interesting and awesome to me. And then I was excited and told my dad about it the next day, and he's like, you know, that could have been something else coming through trying to trick you. Another thing I learned that night, you're not supposed to use it by yourself. A few girls from my platoon had come up and were trying to get my attention, and I didn't hear a word they were saying. But they were eventually able to get me off of it and tell me what had happened. But it was a pretty interesting experience, the first and last time I'd ever used a Ouija board. But it was a very interesting experience for me.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. I mean, you know, because then there's another side to the. There's so many different roads you can go with the paranormal, because there are people that believe in demons and believe in, you know, that side of things. There are people that believe in, you know, bad things that can come up from messing around with Ouija boards. And, you know, I'll have mediums that say, no, you don't do this, you don't do that. So it's good to have an overall picture of everything, because, you know, if you think about it, I guess really, we don't know. You know, we don't know the answer to a lot of things. So.
And another thing you were saying about it's the person moving it. One of my first tools that I ever used doing the paranormal was dowsing rods. My granny had taught me to use dowsing as a kid, but with like a hickory stick or whatnot to try to find water. Let's say about 5 years ago, I went to Vegas, and it was my first time encountering copper dowsing rods. And the energy that came through those was so amazing. Like, it was making me shake, and it felt very heavy at times. And I was getting really amazing different information from it. You can get letters, numbers, locations as far as it directing you. Have you used anything like that as far as old tools?
My one of my uncle's brother, when I was a child, he used the old sticks, the hickory sticks, to find water, and he was a dowser, and he showed me, and I can remember that, you know, holding the sticks and getting the same feeling you got, very heavy and, you know, almost vibrating near things, and I couldn't explain it. And yeah, I've seen dowsing rods used. I've not particularly used them in that sort of, you know, field now myself, but certainly, you know, I've seen, you know, that there is another explanation, you know, that it can be you again doing that, and it, you know, it's but no, it's another interesting thing, and certainly there are you know, professional people that do dowsing and use it to find water, aren't there? So, you know, it's another interesting subject, that one.
It definitely is, and I looked it up on Google, and man, you can find anything you want on Google or YouTube or whatnot, but they were saying that it wasn't you, but it was kind of like psychic ticks that you're getting through your body to receive these answers. So I'm wondering if that's the same as with the Ouija board, you're kind of getting these psychical ticks or whatnot to get the answers from that, but it could be hit or miss or, fact or fiction. We're still learning, but it's very interesting to say the least. I've had really good experience with the dowsing rods, though, but it kind of became an addiction. Okay, I have this tool, now I want this one and this one and this one, and the tools that I have accumulated just to kind of, I don't know if I want to say scientifically get information or just gather a mass of information and see what lines up and what doesn't, what works and what doesn't. Have you ever used online apps or check those out at all?
The apps, do you mean the paranormal apps that they do on
Yes, one that we've used that we've actually had great success with is the Ghost Radar app, and you can do the classic, which shows you energies and words, but then the Legacy actually records the words for you, and sometimes words won't come through, but it'll go on the list somehow. But we've actually had success with that, but other times we haven't. Like I said, it's kind of hit or miss on these different things. Have you ever used anything or had any success with that?
I've always been a bit, because I know with the apps, everyone's got to put for entertainment only, so straight away people get put off by that. I mean, but some of the apps, there's been there's Echo Box, which is it's like an echo when you pick up like real time kind of EVP with that, and I've seen groups use them, and I've kind of given them a go. I mean, the only time for example, when you're using Ghost Radar, and you're getting words coming through, what would be intriguing is if it actually if you went to a location and it was actually relevant to that location. So I wouldn't completely say don't use those things, because if they've been relevant when you're at a location, then all well and good.
And a lot of those tools that you purchase, whether it's Ghostbox or other paranormal tools, they all say that they're basically experimental, and you can't really put your word on it. All of it says that. I think it's kind of to cover their butt, but I'm not sure exactly what's going on with that.
Well, when you think about it, EVP and everything has now become termed as instrumental. I got to think of the word now. Transcommunication. It's basically a lot of computers can be manipulated now by ghosts, and you can have phone calls from the dead. The telephone can ring, and it can be all sorts of things can be manipulated. So if you're at a location and you've got something like an iPhone and it's got an app on, who's to say that they can't manipulate it? And and if you find that it's relevant to where you are, then make a note of it. It's interesting, I mean, if you go to a church and it suddenly comes up the Reverend, then you start thinking, okay, maybe this is a gadget, but it's interesting it's coming up with that. If it then comes up with a name and you can record the name, then sure, who knows? It could be manipulating it if possible.
Yeah, so interesting to say the least. PBR was asking, has a spirit ever attached itself to you, Richard?
I went to a place called it's called Kelvin Hatch, and it's an old underground. Well, it was kept if there was ever a nuclear war. It was and thank goodness it never happened. So somebody died in that hatch, and they locked me in this Kelvin Hatch completely on my own. And I was down in the bunker, and as you watched the footage of it, you could see almost like it looked like a shadow past me. And after I'd done the event, I was unwell, and I wasn't myself. But there was a lot going on in my life at the time. So, other people said to me, we think you may have had an attachment, or, you're doing this a lot and things got bad for you. I mean, I think the important thing is to remember that when you do what we do, it's so important that you're in the right frame of mind. I would now never do an investigation solid on my own if I felt that I was on a low, or if I was because I even though I'm skeptical, I have witnessed a person that I took out on an investigation suddenly get very, very ill, and I would believe that would be what you could call an attachment. So yeah, I am aware of those things, and always cautious of it.
Yeah, and like you were saying, you had a lot of stuff going on in your life, and a lot of times if you're in a depression or you have a lot of negative things going on, so on and so forth, if you're compromised in any way, lack of sleep, other things such as that, you can gain an attachment. I've actually had things attached to me, and I've learned when I feel compromised not to go out, because not only could it harm me, it could harm people on my team or people that I'm trying to help. So I've learned not to go out compromised. Have you learned anything like that over your years of experience?
Yeah, I went. There was a place I went, and somebody was. A no is people taking alcohol and drugs and things like that, because there is a saying that sometimes if you got a particular individual, I believe, I personally don't believe that it's demons and things like that. I believe that if you do get anything that comes back and haunts, that they are as they were in life, and if you get a nasty individual in life, there'll be a nasty individual when they cross over. And I believe that when somebody maybe is on a low and maybe heavily intoxicated, and it's not the place for them to be at a event when you're doing an event, because I have seen somebody like that taken very ill, and it's almost as if the medium said that they felt like whatever was there was because that person had alcohol in them, which we weren't aware of. It tried to attach itself to that person.
Yeah, and it's funny because they call hard alcohol spirits, and it makes you wonder, why do they call it that? Because perhaps when you drink it, things can actually attach to you easier or even take over your body. Have you ever had lost time or anything like that with an attachment?
I have felt strange, certainly in certain events where I've done locations. And yeah, I guess there have been times where I felt, just unwell, generally unwell. So that could equate to lost time. Yeah, it's been a bit peculiar sometimes.
Yeah, it's funny. I've had I was on an investigation at a house near Durango Lake, and my team was there, and we were picking up so many different things. Picked up several pictures of entities, and all of a sudden I felt really sick, and I decided to go outside to get some fresh air. Well, when I went outside to go to my car, another team member of mine was out there, and she had locked herself in the other car, and I was like, "What are you doing? What's going on?" And she said she'd come out to grab some sweetgrass. We use sage and sweetgrass and things like that to do cleansing. And she said when she had gone out there to get that, there was a very large, tall, dark entity out there that had kind of rushed her, trying to attack her, and she basically locked herself in the car. So she got out and she started cleansing herself and then cleansed another member, and I was like, "Will you please cleanse me, because I feel like I'm going to throw up all over the place right now." And she did, and as soon as she did it, that feeling subsided. So I felt like something was trying to take hold at that moment. I've had another instance, and this is where I learned not to go out compromised or by myself. I got excited about this cleansing that I was going to do the next day, and it was right up the road from me, and everybody works regular jobs during the week, so I went by myself. When I got there, generally when I go by a house or pull up to a house, I can feel what's going on in there, and I wasn't picking up anything. So I went in and showed her the cleansing kit that I had brought her, showed her how to use it, and was saging throughout her house. I didn't do my St. Michael prayer, which I usually do. I'm not Catholic, but I do have faith in different tools. spiritual tools
Yeah.
and such. I didn't say my St. Michael prayer. I didn't sage myself because I was in this freaking cloud of sage the whole time. And I didn't cleanse myself before I left. But that night, I lost time. All kinds of crazy things happened. I woke up behind the wheel of my car with no clothes on, and turned around, made my way back home. My husband had locked himself and the kids in the room. So I put on my pajamas and ended up sleeping on the couch that night. And the next day he came out and he wasn't pissed off at me. He was actually legitimately worried about me and was like, he knew it wasn't me because of things I was saying, my voice that was used, and also my facial features had changed.
Yeah.
So after that, I never went out by myself or compromised. And so I've missed several investigations due to that, which I hate doing because I love going on investigations, but it's for the betterment of myself and my team, I believe.
Well, the thing is, I mean, you know, because I'm looking at it in a scientific way and I look at it from a skeptical way, and I've got people in my team. When I do go out with a team, I've got people that are pagan, they're Wiccan, they believe in it from that point of view. I've got mediums, and then I've got people that just don't believe. I've got a mixture of bunch of people, and I will look at it from that, and they will look at it like you. They'll have sage and have all those kind of, you know, they'll do the cleansing and everything else. The fact is, when you're talking like this to people that don't understand about paranormal investigations or going out and doing it, they'll think it's, you know, they'll think this is completely, you know, this can't happen. But we know because we've been there and we've done it. And I have seen people highly affected by going out and doing it, and people acting very strange, you know, been very distant, not themselves, and looking very different to what they normally look like, you know, and it's been quite worrying. And at times like that, we've had to say, look, let's stop. We need to stop this, you know, and, you know, we need to pull out of it.
Somebody made a remark, were you driving the DeLorean? No, I wasn't. That would have been cool. Nikki was wondering, she said, maybe I missed it earlier in the show, but does Richard use any sort of protection for himself before he does any kind of investigation or to be locked into an area that is known for hauntings?
Yeah, what I do, I wear an old Tibetan bracelet and an Indian charm on my wrist that I've worn for a long time, and I always think of that as my own little protection. But I personally believe that it's if you go with good intent, nothing bad can happen. You know, if you're there with good intent, then you always attract good. And I always say that to people when I take them out on events. You know, it's usually the bad intentions that would encourage anything negative.
Yeah, and it was funny because this place I went to was basically in the backyard of a Catholic church, and it was hiding. Like I said before, I didn't sense anything, I didn't feel anything, but I was carrying a tourmaline stone in my pocket and wearing a cross around my neck, which I had procured doing not a paranormal investigation, but a regular investigation, because that's another business we have, is security and private investigation. And we were staying in this hotel, and there was this dark entity trying to attack me all night. Very next day, my husband and I went to this pawn shop. I picked up a pure silver cross. He picked up a bunch of like swords that came in a pack. And I was like, wow, why did you buy that for? And then he told me his experience, and I told him mine, and it's funny that we were both in that frame of mind, like, we need protection. He thought of swords, I thought of the cross, you know?
Yeah.
So it's funny the different things that people use for protection. But as soon as I took that tourmaline off my body that day, that's when it kind of basically jumped in about 30 minutes later.
And this is why I think it's so important that you go with the right frame of mind as well, because like we said, you know, if you go there, you're tired, if you're not in the right frame of mind, or if you've got a lot of problems going on in your life, you know, you're going to be susceptible to, you know, if it's really true that they can attack or attach themselves, then that's when these things are going to happen.
Yeah, it's like you kind of put it out of your mind or have a different frame of mind. You're not in the mindset to be there and to do the work you need to because lack of sleep, or like you were saying, we've had people come on our tours who have been drinking. You don't realize it until you get close to them, and then you can smell the beer or alcohol on them, and then you're like, wow, this person shouldn't be here. And it seems like it makes things go really haywire when you have somebody along like that. Have you noticed that when you have had somebody there that's been drinking or on drugs?
Most definitely. Most definitely.
Can you tell us I'm sorry, can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean, I've had individuals in the past that have been intoxicated heavily, and they've passed out. They've seen things that they don't like and run out of the building, and you found out that they've the big no is not to be intoxicated when you come on an event. If we do public events, not to be for safety reasons, for all sorts of reasons. Best will in the world, you'll then find that if you do have guests, someone may not toe the line, and you've had examples where they've not towed the line, where they've been taken ill quite easily into the investigation, or they've seen things that more than other people, and it's it's been quite worrying. You've had to bring things to a halt.
And the funny thing was, the person that we had, generally we don't take people with us, but we do World's Largest Ghost Hunt every year, which lands in September, generally the end of the month. And they ask you to bring people in from the outside to join you for certain parts of your investigation. And this lady, I'd known her previously, and she's spiritually inclined, has some psychical abilities and whatnot. So I was really surprised when she was the one that showed up that had alcohol on her breath. And I was like, wow, this lady should know this already. You shouldn't show up compromised. You shouldn't be drinking or doing drugs or whatnot, because it can cause problems not only for her, but for the people around her. And it was a very disruptive experience for all of us, really. Not that she did anything out of line, but the spirits were not really happy with what was going on.
I think often what you find as well is when you get people like that, you then wonder if they've taken that as a little bit of Dutch courage to actually go along to a haunted location. And they've already got that fear before they go of going, and they need that, as almost kind of to give them the strength to go.
Yeah, a little liquid courage.
Yeah.
I can see that for karaoke, not really for ghost hunting, but I see where you're coming from.
Yeah.
I was just really surprised because she had experience in the past, and then she showed up like that, and so we've locked our things down. We're planning on doing live ghost hunts this year, but you have to have them fill out a form to relinquish yourself from any sort of injury or whatnot that may happen to them, as well as letting them know that they can't come in while they are drinking or on drugs or whatnot. Do you have any sort of form for people that come into your things? What do you have going on with that?
Yeah, if I do events and there's people coming and guests, then we have liability, like you say, a liability form. We have strict rules and guidelines: no alcohol, no drugs, illegal drugs, because obviously medical may be needed, and also if they got medical problems, just to kind of make us aware for emergencies and all the usual things that you should do when you're doing any organised event.
And when you brought that up, it reminded me, our team also carries, when we go out on investigation, we each have an envelope with a medical form in it with any allergies or anything that we may have in case one of us is found unconscious and we need to call 911. We know what this person's allergies are and what they may need. Do you do that as well to kind of cover yourself and protect yourself?
Very important. You need to know, obviously people, it's up to people what they give you, but if you say to them, look, if we're taking you out, if we're taking a group out, certainly you have responsibility. If you're taking strangers out, you have responsibility. But with your own team, if you have a team, then it's, you do say to them, look, it's very important you tell me, because, if somebody's diabetic, and some people are diabetic, they suddenly can be taken very, very ill with it. So there's all sorts of, very important to have that. Yeah,
it's just another form of protection, You never know what's
Yeah.
going to happen. If you're going to fall through a rickety floor or down the stairs or be pushed or whatnot, you never know. So it's good to have that, because you may know a person, but you might not remember their certain allergies or their blood type or whatever you might need in the rush of the moment.
Well, I guess the funny thing is the kind of places we investigate are not always the safest places, are they? I mean, you can go into an old building where the floorboards are about to collapse, and we don't tend to, as people that go out looking for ghosts, we don't tend to go into places that are made for the general public.
That's so true. There's so many awesome places we've got to investigate. What is the main investigation that you've gone on that is at the peak of your memory? What was your favorite investigation that you've taken part in, and can you kind of paint a picture of that for us?
I think, the favorite, one of my favorites is going to be, well, I guess really it's this church that I've done, which is near an old manor house. It's a secret location because what they don't want is a load of people suddenly turning up there. So I've always kept it quiet, and I've raised a lot of money for that church. But why this place is a favourite of mine is, and I'll tell you a story about this. I went there, I did loan challenges there, but I also took a team there because I kept going back there because so many weird things happened. And there was one particular evening I'm there and I'm with an investigator, and she kept saying to me, I'm getting the name Mary. And I said, well, this is unusual. It's not like you to suddenly get a name. You're not a medium. It's interesting. And she said, yeah, I just keep getting the name Mary. So we sat down and we started to do a seance. And suddenly I heard a voice out in the graveyard. So I go look out the window, and I saw this silhouette of an old gentleman out in the graveyard. And I say, are you okay? And this is where it's freaky. He said, I'm looking for my grave. Now, you can imagine how freaky that is. It's about 3 a.m. in the morning, and you've got this old man out in the graveyard saying he's looking for his grave. So she looks at me, and I said, okay, we might be investigators, but I'm not sure I want to go out and ask him now. So we both laughed about it. But what next door, there was a house that we used to use the toilets in, and it was for people that, shall we say, that have got dementia, Alzheimer's, mentally challenged people, and we used to do the toilets there. So my immediate thing is the guy's come from there, bit unusual he's saying he's looking for his grave, but that's where he's come from. He's come out of the house at night, and we need to take him back. So I go out inside and I see him, and he's got this oil painting in his hat under his arm. And as I'm walking him back to the house, I say to him, can I just ask what the oil painting is? And he says, yeah, it's the Virgin Mary. And I feel a shiver go down me because the woman had been saying the name Mary all the time.
Yeah.
So that was freaky that he said that. But as I walked him back to the house, we normally use the toilets in that house in the early hours of the morning. The nurse opens the door and he goes in. And she said, do you want to use the toilets? And we said, no, that's okay. And as she shut the door, I said to the woman, I said, but did you notice? I said, he went up the stairs and she hardly acknowledged him. I mean, if that was me and it was my care home, I would be like, what's he doing out this time of night? There'd be a real concern. So I didn't manage to inquire. I didn't get the person that was on duty back to find out. But I did say to the woman, for all we know, we may have seen a real ghost that evening and a real apparition. So that was one of my favorite ones.
Yeah, that's so interesting because it could be an apparition and you're seeing it, but she's really not paying any attention to him. Like, had it been an elderly man that had come from my house, I'd be talking to him, well, where have you been? What are you doing? And like, are you okay? Yeah. And try to kind of take care of him while you're there, but she kind of didn't pay him any mind, so it makes you wonder, are you ever going to go back and find out, was there really a man that came in that night? Because she was basically worried about if you needed to use the toilet or not, right?
Yeah, I went back. We've been back since, and the care home did shut, and we do know that the ladies in the house, because the house is attached to the church, the people that left that place, and they said they didn't get on in the house, and there was all sorts going on in that house anyway. That the house itself was haunted. So, I didn't particularly see that particular woman that was on duty to get her to clarify, and I should have done that probably straight away, but I didn't. It is interesting because when people talk about seeing ghosts, sometimes they interact and talk to them just like you and I are talking now on here, and they see them just like a real person. So that was kind of freaking strange, that particular experience.
Yeah, I totally agree. And the fact that he was saying he was looking for his grave, right? Like, that's interesting as well.
Yeah.
So weird. PBR was asking, does Richard know the process the church uses of the final judgment?
No, I'm not too sure what he means by that.
Yeah, me neither. Again, he said, does Richard know the process church of the final judgment? I'm not sure either, really, if they even really have a hand in that. Ron was wondering how many times... Oh, he's talking about aliens. Do you have any experience with aliens?
When I was a child, my mum, I was very small, and I saw something go over our house, and thinking back, I don't know what it was, but suddenly all the lights flickered in the home, and I can remember joking to my mum and saying, I think a UFO's just gone over the house. And my mum freaked out about it, because my mum was quite, that's the way my mum was. No, I've not had any real experience of it. I mean, some people do say that, they aren't ghosts and they are aliens. So that's another interesting phenomena. The thing about the paranormal is, even though we look sometimes at ghosts, that's another interesting part of the paranormal that is well worth looking at and being interested in.
It definitely is something that's been in our world, since Jesus' time. You see paintings with spacecraft in the air and different things going on, and then you have all these different UFO experiences throughout history in the United States and the UK and all over the place. And people are trying to basically hide it. I've had personal experience with it. Have you had any alien UFO experiences or had any sightings of such?
No, nothing specific. But I've had people tell me about it, but nothing specific. No.
It's very interesting, to say the least. PBR was asking, is Richard possessed? Because I think he is. I don't feel like you're possessed. Have you ever felt like you've been possessed?
That's a bit of a worrying intro. No, I don't think I'm possessed. Be interested to know how he feels. Is that PBR? Did you say?
Yes, PBR Street Gang is what his name is in the chat room.
Okay, is he a medium or is he sensitive or?
Not so far as I know. I just recently met him in the chat room a couple weeks ago, so I'm not sure what his experiences are and such. I haven't gotten that far into PBR, but that's pretty funny that he said that.
Yeah, it'd be very interesting if he can elaborate on that. I'd love him to elaborate. We'll let him elaborate on that one. I'm probably possessed at 6:45 in the morning. That may be. Or no, 7:45 now, actually.
Right.
No, 7:45. See, I am possessed. No,
right?
I would love to know what he means by possessed. That would be intriguing.
For sure. Yeah, we'll see what he says if he elaborates in the chat room there. So your most interesting investigation in the UK you've covered already. Is there a most interesting case you've had in other countries, or do you find any difference in cases from the UK and in other countries? Are there differences, or are they kind of the same?
I don't think there's really any difference all over the world. It's interesting. I mean, if you look at places all over the world, everywhere has their phantom hitchhiker. Everywhere has their different kinds of ghosts. I mean, in the Philippines, they talk about the white ladies, a white, like you see a lady in white. And I know when I was in the Philippines, there was a taxi driver that's telling me about a relative of his that had picked up a lady as a phantom hitchhiker, and then she had got out of the car, and he suddenly realised that it was the apparition of somebody that died a long time ago. I mean, I've never come across that in the UK. That would be good. I think beliefs vary sometimes around the world. I mean, in China, they believe spirits can only travel in straight lines, so a lot of their buildings are built with curves in it because they believe, that ghosts only travel in straight lines. It's a form of protection. And they got a long list of ghosts over there. They got weird ghosts, drag ghosts, trickster ghosts, venomous ghosts. So the Chinese are very interested in their beliefs. But yeah, I think all in all, it all goes to the same kind of similar things.
And it is interesting, like when a country like in Japan or other places like that have had, different tsunamis and different things that have come through that have taken people out. And I've seen, there's this particular video I saw where this cab driver, as you were saying, pulled up to pick up a lady in a white jacket, and the door opened and then closed, and he looked in his rearview mirror and she wasn't there. So he got out and looked all around, and she was nowhere to be found.
Yeah.
So it's so interesting when that happens, and it makes me wonder, do they know that they're dead, or do they think they're still alive? Is this a intelligent ghost, or is this basically a residual ghost that is kind of like on replay and is sitting there catching a cab repeatedly?
Well, there's the story that some of the older listeners would know. I mean, I'm getting old now, so that says a lot. Telly Savalas Kojak, you may not have heard of him, but years ago, there was a program called Kojak, which was a detective series, and Telly Savalas was the actor on it. And he saw a ghost where basically he was out walking, and suddenly this car approached him, and it was almost like this was a gentleman in the car, but had a very high female voice speak to him, calling his name. "Can I give you a lift?" And he got in the car, and the bloke suddenly told his name and all that, and took him to where he had to go. And when he got back home, he thought, I'll ring up the person to thank him for that lift. And he rang up and he spoke to the wife of the person that allegedly had given him a lift. And she said, are you trying to wind me up? And he said, no, I just want to say, well, he died months ago. And he said, oh dear. And he had a shiver because he realized that he had just taken a lift by a ghost. And he said, I'm very sorry to hear that. And she, for some reason, he asked how he had passed on. And it had been that he'd took a revolver and shot himself in the voice box. So the fact that the voice was high-pitched and different voice as well. And that was interacting with him. So did that ghost know it was dead? It's questions that we all ask and wonder. And, there are some that they say do know they're dead, and come back for reasons and all that.
And he had actually taken his own life?
Yeah.
Wow. That's insane. I've heard stories like that where, somebody's left their jacket in the car or whatnot, and somebody will take it back, or somebody lets somebody use their jacket and they'll take it back to the home of the person that had given it to them, and they're like, this person's been dead for years, or this person killed themselves or died in an accident. It's so intriguing and amazing when that happens. And how are you able to get this physical article from this spiritual being? It's intriguing to say the least.
Definitely is. I mean, they call it apports. I mean, things that suddenly appear out of nowhere that appear from the spirit realm or wherever, and suddenly this object appears, and it can be in a haunted location, and something from the past suddenly appears. So, yeah, very interesting stories. I've not witnessed it myself, but I'd love to obviously witness something like that.
Well, we've got a couple minutes till our second break. Time's just flying by. But I'm wondering, have you ever captured anything on video or photograph that looks like a physical being but was never really there?
Yeah, we a video we had a long time ago. We're trying to find the video, believe it or not, in a location, and it looks like a little boy walking past the video recorder. And we had it ages ago, and my friend is going through all the discs that we've got to try and find it. And believe it or not, he can't find it at the moment. So, but we did see it when we were going through the recordings, and that was interesting. It was like the head of a child, passing the camera.
That's so awesome. We have an entity at the railroad station where Kate is, and like I said before, they were calling Kate Emmy, but the little girl's name is actually Emmy, and they've captured pictures of her. I'll send to you after the show.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah.
But a lot of people think that child entities are really demons because children shouldn't be stuck here. They should be taken to heaven, but we all have unfinished business, whether this child is looking for its parents or its siblings or whatnot. Perhaps it's here for a reason like that and not really a demonic entity.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on child ghosts?
I think that's possible. I think, children, sadly, many years ago died very, very young, and it could well be that they're looking for their parents. They're not joining their parents. So, it could be just that simple thing, or a child, they died at a very young age. They've not had their childhood. They're associated to a particular place, a place they played, a place they loved as a child, and they just come back and visit. So, those are the questions.
Well, on that note, we have to go to our second break. You guys don't go anywhere. We'll be right back right after these messages.
Come get spooked at the 4th Annual Forest Moon Paracon in Cedar-Woolley, Washington, Saturday, September 28th. UFOs, ghosts, aliens, Bigfoot. Speakers include Mike Morin and Jason Jordan, R. Keith Andrews, and Dave Scott from Spaced Out Radio, and so much more. There will be workshops and a VIP roundtable. Get early bird tickets now at fmparacon.com.
Coming up this September 21st and 22nd, all UFO eyes will be focused on Toronto for the 4th Annual Alien Cosmic Expo. Come listen to some of the biggest names and experiencers in ufology. Travis Walton, Paul Hellyer, Richard Dolan, Paula Harris, Grant Cameron, Randy Kramer, and Spaced Out Radio's own Dave Scott. Tickets are on sale now at aliencosmicexpo.com.
Heading to Vancouver and looking for a night on the town? The Moose Vancouver is the bar that never stops rocking until 2 a.m. every night. The Moose has great food with everything on the menu from $6.95 to $8.95. Fantastic, vibrant staff and rock and roll that will bring you back to when the music was real, the hair was long, and the guitars were rockin'. Get your party on at the Moose Vancouver, the official party bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Get your horns up with me on Spaced Out Radio. This is Ron Bumblefoot THAL. Come tune in to SOR where you can hear me rock out with Little Brother Is Watching, the official theme song of Spaced Out Radio. And then come on over to bumblefoot.com where you can find out about my tour schedule, my music, and everything else. Bumblefoot.com keeps you up to date on what I'm doing and the best way to stay in touch with my music and music camps. Sign up for my newsletter at bumblefoot.com and remember, Little Brother Is Watching.
Come get spooked at the 4th Annual Forest Moon Paracon in Cedar-Woolley, Washington, Saturday, September 28th. UFOs, ghosts, aliens, Bigfoot. Speakers include Mike Morin and Jason Jordan, R. Keith Andrews, and Dave Scott from Spaced Out Radio, and so much more. There will be workshops and a VIP roundtable. Get early bird tickets now at fmparacon.com.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
Hi there, this is Geraldine Orozco from San Francisco's Bay Area Meditation. I invite you to join me the first Tuesday of every month with Dave Scott for Spaced Out Radio's The Spiritual You. In this fast-paced world we live in, it's time for you to take some time for you. We'll cover every possible subject from powerful meditation to healing techniques to your own intuition and spirituality. So come join us for The Spiritual You.
The freedom to post what you want, when you want. That's the social media freedom you need. Social Media Freedom is the free app in your app store. No need to worry about going to jail or being shadow banned any longer. It's the freedom to say what you feel. The freedom to know Big Brother isn't watching. It's the way social media is supposed to be. Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free. Download from your app store today.
Come hang out with Spaced Out Radio, where we own the night. This is Carl. You can follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, and during the show, use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio to chat with us live. On Instagram, at Dave Scott SOR. On Facebook, give our page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. SOR archives are free on YouTube at Spaced Out Radio. Come join us, or I will come join you. See you at your window.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now. The Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
We are getting ready to relaunch the SOR Space Travelers Club at spacedoutradio.com. For $5 a month, you can join us for a plethora of features found nowhere else. Hang out in a private chat room during the show and after party. You can check out some exclusive content and a store specifically for you, as well as a private listener forum where you can post your thoughts, stories, and pictures. The SOR Space Travelers Club, coming soon to spacedoutradio.com.
Find your escape where time has no limits. It's about living today and cherishing the heritage of yesterday. A spirit of adventure for what is new, with the nostalgia of the past. Your timepiece is a reflection of who you are. Life surrounded by beauty from the world around us to the soul within. EscapeWatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
Hi there, this is Dave Scott from Spaced Out Radio, and I want you to come on a nightly journey. Starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, every Monday through Friday, you can come hang out with me and the other space travelers. We have it all from Carl the Alien bouncing on by to those misfit gnomes causing havoc. It's 3 hours of fun and entertainment on those topics the mainstream really doesn't want to touch. Come get all paranormal with us at spacedoutradio.com, and together, my friends, along with our resident guitar god Bumblefoot, we own the night.
Sit back, relax, grab a drink, and listen closely. Spaced Out Radio continues through the weekend. From the mile-high mountains of Colorado to you, listening around the world, this is Spaced Out Weekend with Tessa Nicole Thomas.
Hey guys, welcome back, and thanks so much for joining us tonight. Tonight we are joined by Richard Case, the Ghost Challenger. Welcome back. It's so great to have you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me back.
So we were talking about PBR on the break, and he had said a couple things. One of the last things was I want to hear Richard talk in his demon voice, which I don't believe you're demonically possessed, but it is kind of funny.
I'll try my best, but I'm probably going to lose my voice if I try that. So.
Right?
Yeah.
We're in our last hour. We don't need that. Perhaps right before we leave.
Possibly not, no.
So you were saying that you were on the police force. Over there in the UK, is that considered a bobby, or is that in England, or what is that considered in the UK? What is the name of that?
It's considered a bobby. It's we wear the funny shaped helmets over here, and we carry little sticks, batons they're called. And I know a friend of mine who was in the New York police used to find that quite amusing, because obviously you have guns over there, and he used to joke with me and say, you carry a little truncheon. I said, well, it's not quite like that now. We don't have the wooden truncheons anymore. We do have metal batons, but yeah, we that's what we're known as bobbies in the UK.
Have you, during your time on the police force, did you ever have any unexplainable or paranormal experiences doing that job?
I didn't myself, but I know colleagues that did. There is a story of a girl that's seen around this lake area. That's her apparition has been seen on a certain date, and I know that some guys that were in a police patrol car claimed to have seen her, and they said it was almost like a hologram of the girl, and I'll never forget what they saw. So I do know of police officers that have had strange experiences, definitely.
Can you tell us a little bit about those paranormal experiences on the police force, not experienced by you, but by your colleagues?
Yeah, I mean, like the girl by the lake, that was seen by police officers, and the other things would be that there's an area where sadly someone was murdered, and the police used to patrol around that area, and they said that they'd seen someone or something appear and then disappear in that area. So yeah, I mean, it has been talked about in the police that there's been strange things. I guess that's the same in the USA. I guess other officers have seen things as well.
Yeah, I've heard a few, and even police force getting calls from a certain location and going there to investigate, and nobody's there, and nobody's been there for years.
Yeah, we have one prime one. It's a location that I did not so long ago, and years ago, what happened was the police had what we call a 999 call. I think it's 911 over in the States, but they had a 999 call, and they had a voice on but they didn't have a voice. It was just from this room in this building. And when the police went there, they called the manager out. He said, well, there can't be anyone there. There's no one in that building. And it was in an old soap factory where there was a fire years ago. But the fire was a long time before this 999 call was made. And it was from the room where the fire was. And they had a call, and there was no one in the building. So that was another strange experience.
And you were talking earlier about phone calls from the dead, and I actually read online not too long ago that there's a person out there that is trying to manufacture these phones and supposedly has had great luck with using this certain paranormal phone that can talk to the other side. Have you heard anything about that?
I know there's a guy called Cal Cooper that's written a book on telephone calls from the dead. And I know that, I think there is a guy that's trying to use something to speak. I've heard of Eamon Van Harris, who's from Most Haunted team. He's trying to perfect things to communicate with the dead. I haven't really heard about a telephone. That was something that was done a long time ago, I think I've heard, but not recently. I haven't heard of that with the telephone, no.
Yeah, and back when they were first coming out with the phone, supposedly they had a spirit phone as well.
Yeah.
Are you privy to that as well?
Yeah, there was that was right back in the beginning of time. I'm trying to think who it was now that I think it was Edison and people like that. They try to have a spirit phone and telephone calls from the dead. I mean, it's been happening for years. There's been stories of it and history of it, and people saying that they've had a phone call from someone ringing them up, and they've answered the phone and spoken on the phone, and then when they've put the phone down, they've heard maybe 2 days later that person died at that right moment. It's a little bit like crisis apparitions, where people see. I mean, I know a friend of mine who sadly lost his son, and somebody said, "You couldn't have lost your son that time because I saw him outside your house. It was a bit strange. He was looking up at your window outside the house." And they call that like a crisis apparition just before, when someone passes, just before they die, almost like a farewell. And that's what's happened with these telephone calls.
That is so awesome. And I've heard people talking about their family members calling them as well. And sometimes they'll get a voice, but for the most part, it's from a number of that person that they know, and it's just quiet on the other end, and it'll happen repeatedly until a day or so after.
Yeah.
But it's so interesting to hear those. I wished for that when my dad passed. I wish he'd call me. I accidentally called him a few times and didn't realize until I got the voicemail, oh yeah, he's not there anymore. And it's hard to really, I don't know, lock onto that or take it into your life that this person is actually gone. But it is so amazing.
I think that goes back to my experience with when my father-in-law died. I mean, I know I said that may have been me hallucinating, but I'm sure to this day that I was very, very much awake when that happened. And it was the early hours of the morning. And I remember just saying to him, "I need your help." And my iPhone started ringing, and it was ringing the local, crematorium. And it was a sort of joke my father-in-law would have with me. "Well, I'm not here now. You'll have to call the crematorium," because he joked about things. And I felt that was almost like a sign from him, because I couldn't explain it. And it wasn't Siri, and I didn't have that number on my phone. And it was just very strange that it called that number.
Indeed, it is. We have a question from the Periscope chat room. Space Alien was asking, could these events be caused by morphic fields caused by the living?
Possibly. I mean, again, it's, who knows? I mean, that I've heard that said before, that the living could be causing these things. And I don't know enough about morphic fields. You have to elaborate on that one. But they do say that, with mediums picking up sometimes if somebody's died, say, for example, if somebody's passed over, they say that the medium is not actually I mean, this is an awful thing for people that have trusted a medium, have lost loved ones, but they do say that the medium's not actually picking up the loved one, but reading the mind or picking up the telepathy from the person that is in front of them. So, yeah. But I'd like him to elaborate on morphic fields a little bit.
Yeah, that's the part that kind of hung me up, and I'm like, Google,
yeah.
What are morphic fields? But I have heard about thought forms, and such as Slender Man and other things like that. Legends that are out there that people have heard about, and they repeat them to different people, or they believe in them to a certain extent, to the fact or the point that to the point where it actually forms, or people are witnessing it. So it's pretty interesting and intriguing how the mind works.
It's definitely another intriguing thing. I mean, it's almost like when I've gone to a location and an object's been thrown in a location, or appears to be thrown. I mean, the first thing I say to people is, thrown is a very, very strong word to use. I mean, make sure it hasn't fallen from somewhere. But when it looks like an object's been thrown, is it us that are causing that to happen? Is it our thoughts that are causing that to happen? And there's telekinesis. There's all sorts of reasons. So again, it's paranormal because it can't be explained by science. But it's an interesting thought.
Big John in the Periscope chat room was asking if you believe in Bigfoot.
I neither believe or disbelieve because I haven't seen or I haven't investigated. So, there's been some interesting theories on Bigfoot, and probably Bigfoot would probably be easier to believe than it is that, in ghosts maybe, because maybe it's some sort of life or some sort of living thing that we've not witnessed. You look at animals that are unknown, species that are unknown. So it's something I haven't studied, but I know people that have witnessed it and seen it and have experiences of it. So I'm open to investigate one day, hopefully.
Do you guys have sightings over in the UK as well, or is that mainly over here and in the Asian province?
No, we have the Loch Ness Monster. People have seen up in Scotland. They've seen what appears to be a monster, and then people have explained it that it's a piece of driftwood or something like that. But again, people we've not heard no sightings for a long time. But there was a time when that was on everyone's lips.
Yeah, it's funny with Bigfoot. I actually made a comment not too long ago that perhaps Bigfoot that has been captured on camera could be a ghost because it's always got this hazy, fuzzy look, and when someone goes to find them behind the tree they hid behind or whatnot, they're not there. Other people tend to think that they're from a different plane where they can kind of go through a portal and be back in that other plane and then come back this way. I don't know, there's so many different things and variations and unknowns about it, it's hard to really pinpoint it. And nobody's ever found a body, so that's another thing that's interesting about it as well.
Yeah.
So going back to ghosts, do you guys have any sort of urban legends that you think have become thought forms or urban legends that could be true?
There's always an urban legend. One of the urban legends we have is, which you probably get over there, is like if we go to, I've investigated sometimes a hotel, and they said to me, well, there used to be a monastery and the nun was bricked up in the wall. And then you go up the country and you hear the same story there and the same story there. Well, there is a particular truth in one, that it was a monastery, and the nun, that when they were taking out the building, they found the skeleton of a woman there. So that proved to be some fact in
that. Space Alien in the chat room was talking about why aren't there ghosts of dinosaurs? I know that we have sightings here in the Four Corners area of dinosaurs. They could be ghosts. But going back to the Mayans and the Aztecs, on their pyramids, you actually see Stegosaurus on there, and they actually carved and depicted things that they had seen and weren't just, made up things. So it's interesting to think about dinosaurs when people thought they had actually died off and how they could still exist. What are your thoughts on that?
Did he ask the question, why aren't there ghost dinosaurs? Or
Yes, why aren't there ghost dinosaurs?
Yeah, that's a very, very good question, and one that baffles a lot of people. Because we think of Stone Age man. We think of, it seems to be that when we hear of ghosts, we hear of, the Victorian days, or going back to the 1700s, or and I guess over in the States, you go back to when the Native American Indian roamed the plains. There must be stories of ghosts of Native American Indians back in the time, going back. But often you don't hear of those things, and that is I think that's a question that we all ask. Why isn't there ghosts of dinosaurs? Why don't people see, people talk about dogs and pets and things. Why don't we see things going right back, into Stone Age? Why don't we see it? And that's a question that I wish I could answer, and one that I often ask myself.
And it's so amazing the different things they're finding. You know, they basically date dinosaur bones by the things that are laying underneath or around them. But there have been hammers and picks and such that have been found that have been dated back to millions of years ago, which make us rethink our history that we've learned. Space Alien is asking, why do ghosts generally communicate in a language we understand, being there are zillions of languages? Have you gone into a place of foreign language and used your own language and gotten a response?
Yeah, that again is a brilliant question. It's a question I ask as well. Because often on television you see it, that suddenly they go somewhere in another country, and suddenly the ghost suddenly speaks English very conveniently, which makes you wonder if they've that's been made up. I've not myself I've gone to all places around the world, and as yet I've not actually recorded EVP where I've had the voice in the language of where I've gone, and I've not had, well, I haven't had English there, I haven't had EVP, but I do hope for the day that I will go, say, for example, to Spain, and I'll go to a haunted place and I'll have a Spanish voice speaking to me, because it's a very good question. You know, why do they suddenly speak? If you know, people claim to go these places and they are always speaking in English, and I'm sure that, you know, if they were in another country, they'd be speaking in that language.
Yeah, it's funny when you see these paranormal shows and they'll go to these different places and they'll speak their own language and not the language of the ghost. And a lot of times it's really, really quiet and they don't get anything. And people are like, well, you're not speaking their language, you're not going to get a response. But then it kind of takes you back to, once you do cross over to the other side, is the barrier of language lost and you kind of have an openness to all languages, or how exactly does that work? It's a very intriguing question.
Well, I've been reading a book by a lady called Annabella Cardozo, and she's based in Portugal, and she does a lot on electric voice phenomena, and she's doing a lot of research in that at the moment. And she said that she often gets voices coming back different languages, English, Portuguese, Spanish, you know, so she does say, but she did say that when she communicates with spirit, they have said in some books and some research that there isn't a barrier anymore, that the language isn't a barrier. So, yeah, you know, again, it's something we won't know until we actually end up on the other side, really. Which is why I go back to there not been any kind of experts on everything, you know, on this field, because there's so many if whats and maybes and how and whys. You know, we try our best as researchers, but you know, none of us have the complete answer to it.
Yeah, and we may never know until we do get to that other side. But it's interesting, and I think if I do ever go to another country, which I hope to someday, that I would have a translator to be able to translate any EVPs or whatnot that we might get.
Yeah.
But like you said, that barrier could be gone. So it's an interesting prospect, to say the least. What has been the most active area in your experience doing paranormal investigation? Is it in the UK, being that that's where a lot of people came from to other countries, or have you had more experience in other countries that you visited?
Mainly because I've had more time in the UK. I've had more experience in the UK, but that's only because I live in the UK, and I've had more time to explore. I mean, if I've gone around the world, I've been on vacation, and it's been limited, my time. And as you probably know, you've got to go back to a location more than once to really get to know a location and for anything really to happen. And some people say that's because we start imagining things at that location, and other people say that's because whatever's there gets used to us. And I certainly found that when I've done a location in the UK, the longer I've gone there, the more things have happened, and those things have been strange. And I know I've been in my right state of mind when they've happened, and I can't explain them.
Yeah, it is very interesting. And like you're saying, sometimes it takes more than 1 or 3 or 5 times to get a response, because there kind of is that trust factor. Is this person here to help us? Is this person here to antagonize us? Because a lot of people do go in there disrespectfully, not naming names on certain shows that I've watched, but they go in there and they antagonize these ghosts and they cause turmoil and such, which I find disrespectful. So sometimes spirit will stay kind of hidden out and not want to communicate, because, I mean, if I was a ghost, I wouldn't want to communicate with you if you're insulting me, or maybe if I had the power, I'd throw you across the room. But, I mean, respect is of, the utmost in our investigations. That's our number one key tool that we use. And being that this person is on the other side doesn't make them any less of a human to us, and we have that respect for them. And even with the brakeman, we don't think highly of him, but we've never gone in and been disrespectful to him, because that's just not proper etiquette to us.
No, I concur completely. I agree completely on that, because the thing is, if these people live once, I mean, it's like anything, isn't it? If you're gonna get someone to speak to you that's living, you talk to them in a way that's approachable. You talk to them with respect. You talk to anybody, and you get much further in communication. So if they've then no longer living and they've passed over, they've taken their human personality survived, they will want to be treated with respect, and it goes without saying.
So true. Have you ever encountered a child ghost on any of your investigations? And do you know why they're stuck here?
Yeah, the one of the locations we did, there was the medium. I mean, when we say do we pick up on child ghosts, sometimes, because I'm not a medium, I can't always pick up on what's actually haunting there. But several times I took different mediums there, and they all came up with the same thing about a child. And they said that they liked that place. They used to play there. And what we did was I put objects down like toys and things, and then I've had like a motion sensor nearby and said go to the toy, and as it appears they go into the toy, the motion sensor's gone off, and it's gone off every time I said go near the toy, which has been quite intriguing. So it appears that I have experienced children that haunt as well.
One of our best cases is the Kate Johnson case, just because we were able to find her history and her religion, and actually it was a classroom from a Catholic church that had come in, and these kids had said a prayer of release from purgatory, and Kate was actually gone for about 3 months, and then she came back, I think, to protect Emmy. And when I send you this picture, you'll see they're together, and I think that goes back to the whole free will and being able to do what you need to in the afterlife. But we're wanting to find out about Emmy, why she's here and why she's stuck here, and that's one of our next steps as being a paranormal group, is trying to find out why she's here and if there's any way we can help her to move on. But a lot of spirits don't want to, and it brings up the question, is it because Judgment Day hasn't come and so we're free to be where we want when we want, or are there different reasons for that? So many questions that are unanswered that I'd love to have the answer to.
Yeah, I think it's something we never will get the answer to, or when I say we never get the answer to, if we have a medium with us that can communicate or claim to communicate with a spirit, and they can at least tell us what that spirit wants or thinks and what they're feeling. And sometimes, there is always this assumption that, that they're going to move on to a better place, or they're going to move on. And sometimes, maybe that attachment to that place is so strong that they're quite happy being there for eternity. Who knows? And it's a question, like yourself, I think we'd all like to have the answer to.
Yeah, there's so many answers that we want answered, but it's still interesting, and it keeps us going out there and investigating and finding different scenarios. I actually went to a radio station where the DJ, he has these different things on his boards and stuff, little zuzus and wham-whams, and things would be moved. And so they invited us in to investigate, and we found not only was there a child there, but there was a man and a woman. And we used SB7, and then the batteries ran out on that, so we were using the SB11. And at the very end, the male ghost was yelling at the child ghost to get out of there and to stop what he was doing, because it kept trying to communicate with us. And this male entity was very controlling and dominant over the female and the child. They ended up moving from that location, but it was interesting to pick up these voices and get these different people coming through, and the different, I don't know, power or whatnot that they have over each other. It's interesting that still goes on the other side. This man was controlling of these two in the living, and like you said, when you die, you don't automatically become a good person. You're still the same person you were when you died. So they continue to do the same thing. So that's interesting as well.
It is, and I think it's why if you think about it, we if the human personality does survive, then we're going to take exactly as we were, with us. And this is where I once saw somebody that was doing because I believe, even though I'm a skeptic, sometimes it's very important I look at it from all aspects. And I saw somebody that did what they call rescuing work from people that had attachments and spirits attached to them. And it was quite moving, because it seemed to be that this individual didn't want to leave this woman who had given him kindness before he had died. It was a nurse, and he was very much attached to her. And he was afraid. He didn't want to leave the world. He didn't want to leave the people he loved, as we don't want those people to leave us when, the other side. So, it's very interesting, and, intriguing.
We had, brought in he calls himself a rescue medium. Ron Sherman is his name, and we brought him onto the team to the railroad station because we're like, we got to get rid of this brakeman. Like, he's a negative entity, and he keeps picking on and keeping these other entities from talking to us. Like, when Kate was gone and we go in to talk to Emmy, he'd come in and use foul language and talk down to her and basically attack her, and she'd leave, and then he'd be left. And so we were like, we need to get rid of him. And so we brought in this rescue medium, hoping that he'd get rid of this brakeman, but he was saying he wasn't ready to leave. So there still is that free agency, and you can't force something to go, really. It's kind of up to them whether they do or not, according to certain people.
Yeah, and again, that is something that, as a researcher, we rely on the expertise of or the knowledge of somebody that has the gift to communicate with the spirit to give us that information. And I think it is very difficult to know, because there is an assumption that people will do an exorcism on a place, and suddenly that place will not have this or that anymore. And then there is the story that people find that it's not gone; it's still there. That is not something I do myself. Well, I'm not an exorcist, I'm not a medium, but I have heard of those cases where they've brought someone in and it's still been there.
Yeah, and it's kind of like the only answer to that is, if you're not happy there, you have to move, because this thing is not leaving. So yeah, sometimes stuff like that happens. What has been your favorite case so far that you've worked on?
My favorite case so far probably was Alcatraz, because I love Alcatraz, and because of where it is, the history, and because everyone wants to do Alcatraz. Even though nothing particular happened that time, it was such a lovely place to go, and just experiencing Alcatraz and the environment there, that was enough. So yeah, definitely Alcatraz.
Yeah, I haven't been there. I have an awesome sweatshirt that says psych ward, outpatient, Alcatraz. and I went to California for a UFO conference, which was the very first conference I had ever gone to. And that's where I met the creator of this show and host, Dave Scott, and a few people.
Yeah, it's a lovely place.
I
California.
loved it.
Yeah, and Dave's great. Yeah, because California, fantastic place. And I love it. I loved it when I went there. I mean, I love the USA. Everyone in the USA says, "Oh, I want to go to England because you've got some great places over there." But believe it or not, we're always saying the same. We want to go over to the USA because you're a big place, and we're only a small little island, and there's so many places that we love to do over there.
Space Alien was wondering, do you find your dreams are ever affected by certain investigations?
Yeah, funnily enough, I mean, again, is that to do with, I don't know, is that because our thoughts, everything we think about in the daytime suddenly becomes a dream and it can just be explained that way? But yes, I have been to locations, and one particular location I went to, I dropped off to sleep at the location, and it was where people, as I said, were hung for, just stealing sheep and very petty crimes. And as I was falling asleep, I suddenly had all these faces crying in my dream and crying out in agony and seeing a hangman's noose. So that was definitely affected by it. I woke up with a jolt and thought, there were ghosts in the room, but it was a dream. But it was relevant to that location. So yes, I definitely have had that. Yeah.
It's so interesting when a case does come through in your dreams, and it kind of takes me back to when you have a loved one pass away. My mom passed away when I was 5, almost 6. And you'd think you'd be able to dream about someone whenever you want to, but I've only seen her in my dreams twice. I find that's the easiest way for a ghost to come through and communicate is through your dreams. Have you had any experience such as that?
The only thing I have had sometimes where the people I love have talked to me in a dream, and I've felt, oh, it's important I write this down because I kind of have that feeling that would be the time they would communicate to us. I did have a very strange dream when I was young that my brother was going to have a motorcycle accident, and I dreamt he had the motorcycle accident, and he did have a motorcycle accident. That is genuine. I did have that dream when I was young, so that was a bit freaky.
Yeah, very interesting. Were you able to warn him or let him know what your dream was, or did you kind of just keep it to yourself and then realize later that it was somewhat of a premonition?
Well, it was kind of like, I think the day after that they had the phone call, and I said, well, I had the dream the night before, so yeah, it was like a premonition. So that was, I remember that now well as a child, and I can explain that one, and that was strange. Yeah.
Space Alien was also asking, as far as dreams, have you ever felt investigated subjects were trying to reach you in your dreams and share a message? I think you had just talked about that.
Well, I wouldn't say, but I know when I've gone out with a team, they've had dreams where they felt that the place we've gone, they are trying to reach out to them. They've said to me, I feel like that place that we went to, I had a dream that's whatever it was pointing to this area, and we've gone back and we've looked at that area and we've seen a name, so we thought that's quite interesting. So not myself directly, but other people have. Yeah.
So amazing. And it does take a lot of energy for ghosts to appear and try to communicate, because like you're saying, on EVPs generally it'll come through as a whisper or a very light voice. It's very hard to hear and very difficult for them to appear to us. It takes so much energy for them to do that, and how much practice does it take? I have no idea. But in the dream state, it's kind of like another realm where they're able to come through and communicate not only physically but with their voice. So that's very interesting to think about, really.
Yeah, definitely.
So is there a place on your bucket list that you want to investigate that you haven't got to yet?
There's so many places in the USA that I want to do. I mean, where you live, you've got the Rocky Mountains and all the places around there. And, it's so difficult to put it down to one particular place. I would love to do one place that's near to you is a Stanley Hotel, isn't it?
Yes.
Now, I'd love to do there because obviously there is a saying that that's where The Shining originated from. And, I don't know how much that's true. You might be able to tell me, but that's one place that is on my bucket list. And, the Waverley, the hospital over there, there's so many in the USA. And it's mainly the USA, I think, that my bucket list goes to, yeah.
Well, if you ever come over here, I would recommend Colorado as well as down south where I'm from, which is the Four Corners area. A lot of psychics that I've talked to, because a part of World's Largest Ghost Hunt is bringing in a psychic to help you out. I had so many turn me down because they say this area is basically a huge vortex and they're afraid to do anything to disrupt it and make it worse or darker or whatever may happen. But we have Aztec ruins and all kinds of different things going on here, or it's Anasazi ruins, sorry. So many different things as far as natives and, back in the Old West. And, I mean, there's so many genres you could cover in so many places in such a small area. But if you do ever come over, please contact me because I'd love to go to some of these locations with you.
Yeah, definitely, because I'm looking at eventually getting back over in the States. I mean, it was only last year that I was over in, New York, and I went to Charleston and all those places. And, the USA is a big place, and there's so many places over there I want to do, definitely.
So were you able to investigate in New York, and did you find it to be really active compared to other places you may have gone in the U.S.?
New York, there was loads and loads of places and stories of hauntings in New York and things. And, as I said, that church I did where the bells ring and that in Manhattan, that was interesting. I think there's, going on to that, there's also comes into, which I've realized recently, and I spoke to somebody a long time ago about this, there's the ethics in ghost hunting as well, isn't there? Because sadly, I only found out recently that people have been looking for ghosts in some of the most, I would say the most inappropriate places. They've been going to places where great tragedy have recently happened. And you only got to think of 9/11 and places like that, And to me, those would be no places to go, and do those sort of things because of all, it's just unethical, And I've, heard people going to Auschwitz and places like that and getting out EVP recorded, So I don't know what your feelings are, but some of those things seem so inappropriate to me.
It's very true how it is inappropriate and so new to people, but it's kind of tempting for a ghost hunter to go to places like that because you must think it must be very active, but you have to have respect for the loss of life and give it some time. And Auschwitz, that did happen such a long time ago, but it is a place of great loss of life for young and old alike. And it can be very tempting to go to those places, but like you're saying, it's kind of like there's a law against it as far as respect and respect for human life goes. Like, where do you draw the line? And it's places like that. I do agree with that. So when it comes to... Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, sorry, that's it. You carry on.
I was going to say, so when it does come to that, with this hospital we were talking about earlier, and I'm just kind of spacing it out right now, where people had died from the certain disease, would that be kind of in the same circumstance as Auschwitz and 9/11, being that a lot of people lost their lives unwillingly to a certain disease, or is it okay because so many people have done it before
I think
us?
that's a good I think that's a good question. I mean, I see where you're coming from, because it is quite a difficult one, isn't it? Because what we investigate is tragedy, and because we're looking sometimes at ghosts and people that have passed on, often it will be around where something bad has happened and something sad's happened, and it's unavoidable that, I mean, like you say, going to a hospital where there's been a lot of disease could be deemed the same as, other things. I think it's just using a little bit of common sense sometimes, with, like, for example, if it had been 9/11, that's so recent, that's so difficult. If it was, if a medium went to somewhere like a Holocaust place and picked up things, then they're just picking up maybe something that needs to be picked up. Who knows? But yeah, it's a very interesting point, a very interesting question. I tend to go to places that are a lot of historical places, and I try to be as best I can where it's going to upset people recently. I have to be, try to look at it and see who it's going to affect, really.
Yeah, and Space Alien had also brought up the point of, or investigations that focus on victims who have living relations. Perhaps a living person would reach out to someone and ask for someone to go investigate. That would be different than just going to the 9/11 grounds and just going on your own and doing something. If somebody asked you, that would be somewhat different than just going and kind of taking advantage of that place.
Yeah, if somebody's asking for a medium to go somewhere and they're saying, I need your help, and this is where the tragedy happened, tell me if that person's trying to contact me. Completely different kind of thing. I think when you've got a group going there with waving around machines and stuff like that and just doing it for the fun factor or whatever thing, that's the two are very different. Yeah.
So, let's see. Man, I had a question and I lost it. But there are so many places, and it seems like there's just not enough time to investigate all of these. Is there a place that over in the UK that you've investigated that just kind of took you aback or really blew your mind and you couldn't really wrap your mind around what had happened?
I think going to the UK, I think all of them, they don't. I mean, the only one that blew my mind was that one where I talked about the guy coming out with the painting. That was kind of like, I don't really know what happened there. But the places in the UK, most of them, I kind of know of the hauntings, know of what's gone on when I've been there. So it's not really blown my mind, although things have happened that have been pretty strange and pretty unusual. And exciting. I mean, the Bristol Old Vic I talked about, or you talked about in the biography, that was a fantastic place to do because, one of the old actresses died there and the theatre manager died there, and, you're going around on the stage looking for ghosts and that. It's just a wonderful place to investigate. Fantastic history. It's had some of the best actors and actresses there, and you hope you're going to find or get some evidence of them. And there's another theatre I did, and the great Houdini was there. And as we know, Houdini vowed that he would come back from the dead if he could, and leave a password for his wife. And it would have been great to have, someone like that who was interested in the afterlife. It would have been great to have communicated with someone like that.
Yeah, there are certain people, like you said, Houdini, that if you could communicate with them or get an answer from them, that would be amazing. Have you ever gone on an investigation and heard a voice with your own ear or been touched? Yeah.
I've gone to a location and it's like a groan. I heard it as clear as day, and I've also heard a little like a cackling, an old woman cackling in my ear, and it's suddenly just come out of nowhere. So I've heard that. Touched, I've never been touched. I've never had the feeling I've been touched. A friend of mine was pushed right next to me in an old cellar, and he's not somebody that makes things up. And he suddenly pushed forward and said, "I felt like something pushed me," and there was no one there behind him, and it was just me and him and someone else, and we made sure there was no one there. But touch, no, I've never been touched, and it's something that I've always, thought I'd love to have that happen. I've had a sensation near the face, like something's looking at me and things, but never touched.
A lot of people will describe walking through an area and feeling like a web or something on their face, but they look around and there is no spider web there, and it could be ectoplasm. Have you ever had an experience like that, or known someone who has?
Yeah, I mean, when I say not touched, I mean I've had the spider web and that feeling when I've gone into an area, and certain areas I've had that, definitely.
Yeah, so awesome when something so unexplained has happened. You're like, it feels like I walked through a web, but there's nothing there. What is it? And you can't get it off. Space Alien was asking, do you ever get frustrated with misinformation people base investigations around?
Very much so. And often it's the case that, people will, they won't get the facts right. And and also sometimes it can be who you use as a, you go to a location. I mean, I went to one location and it's called the Ram Inn in England. It's a very famous place in England that was haunted. And we went into the barn area and we were there and we had our hands on the table and it was like something kicked the table. And we had a reporter with us. And these other investigators were saying, "Oh, well, we're trying to get her to look at the face on the wall," and all it was a pattern on a wall. I know that's slightly different to what he's asking about misinformation, but they were focusing on something which was irrelevant and missing the real activity. But it does happen with misinformation. I mean, somebody can be saying like, "This happened in an area," and sometimes a medium can. You could have a medium that's just there for all the wrong reasons, making up information that's not necessarily true. And you could be missing where all the haunting's going on. So misinformation, that can be frustrating.
Indeed. And Space Alien was also asking, how big of a role does TV play in that misinformation frustration?
TV is very much, it can be dramatizing events, over-dramatizing events on television. I know of a TV series where, for example, we did an area called Pendle Hill, which was full of witches, and the immediate thing on this TV program was that all witches are evil and all witches are bad, and everyone was watching it thinking, "Oh, the witches are causing this, the witches are causing that," and that was pure misinformation because they weren't evil, they weren't bad, they were poor, misunderstood women that were persecuted. So that's when misinformation on television can be very dangerous and very damaging to what we do.
Yeah, and people can put out that idea of it's witches or whatnot and let it go haywire and crazy when in reality that's not the case.
Yeah.
Well, we're in our last 5 minutes of the show. Are there any other locations that we haven't talked about where you had amazing outcomes that we haven't discussed?
There are more, but I haven't got the time to say all of them. But there is one I did an old pier, and it's in England, and they had a sighting of an old fisherman on the pier, and then somebody took a picture, and when they looked at the picture, there's 1 minute he's there and 1 minute he's gone, and they got me to spend the night on this pier trying to find this ghostly fisherman, and that was a very, very eerie thing, because you imagine being on an old pier at night, the fog coming in. You can imagine the film The Fog. So the atmosphere and everything has really added to it.
Have you found that locations that are located near a water source, such as a river, stream, or even the ocean, to be more active than locations that are land-based?
I wouldn't say that I found them any more active than land-based. I mean, I found a land-based, that church I talk about, is very, very strange things happen there. And then I can go to somewhere near the sea and nothing does. So I've not yet seen evidence of that, no.
Yeah, a lot of people think that due to the running water and the energy that comes off of it, it could create more activity, or has been proven to. And sometimes there are also underground streams, so it makes you wonder, is there an underground stream where this church is, or is it just a very, very active location? But it's so awesome when you do get that evidence, whether there's water or not. I mean, there's just so many different questions. Why is this happening? How long will it last? Like, there's stories of hauntings that have been around for eons that are still happening.
Yeah, definitely. And I think we're still looking for the answers to that. I mean, people talk about ley lines and all sorts of things, and different things in different areas, and so and again, we need to look at the sources, look at if there's anything underground, any water sources. Is it that particular thing that does create the haunting? Is there other things that make it in our mind? So many questions, and that's what we're doing when we're researching and trying to find out these things.
Mooney was asking, does Richard know if anyone has done a real investigation at the 9/11 Ground Zero site?
No, I don't, but I've heard people talking about, going there. And I was I went there just to visit because I felt I wanted to go and pay my tribute to such a tragedy that affected us all in the UK, like it did over to the people in the USA. But no, I don't know of anyone that's done that, no.
And that's good. There's a certain guy out there, when Robin Williams and other celebrities have passed on, he immediately gets on his ghost box and tries to communicate with them.
Yeah.
A lot of people like that, but a lot of people look down on it because it seems like it's too soon, and this person is kind of trying to take advantage to basically build up their ego or whatnot. What are your thoughts on that?
100%. I know. I disagree that I think that's wrong. What's done there? There's a time and place to investigate and to we all know of that situation, and we all know that people have lost loved ones. So I just don't think it's appropriate to do it that soon.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know. Pick your battles and be respectful. That is the key thing. And I don't, you're talking about common sense and such, which I learned in military. Common sense is not a flower that grows in everybody's garden. But it is a key thing that we do need to take into account and to use, not only in our everyday lives, but on investigations dealing with those who have passed. But we are at the end of our time, Richard. Can you tell our listeners how to find you, how to find where you broadcast your investigations, and how to contact you?
By all means. My website is www.theghostchallenger.co.uk, and they can find me on Twitter, Richard Case, the Ghost Challenger. Follow me on there because I need some follows. And on Facebook, I've got the Facebook page, the Ghost Challenger on Facebook, and all my live things will be on there as well.
Awesome. Well, it's been awesome having you on tonight, and I thank you so much again
awesome,
for coming out and hanging out with me and sharing your experiences. It's been amazing.
Yeah, it's been brilliant. Thank you. And thank you to all the listeners as well. It's been great interacting and talking to everyone, and thank you.
Thank you so much again, Richard. And I hope to someday have you back.
Yeah, thank you.
And thank you so much to everyone in Spaced Out Radio, Facebook, Spreaker, Twitter, Paranormal Radio, TalkStream Live, Deep Talk Radio, Periscope, and wherever else you may be listening in the universe this evening. I had a wonderful time, and it was my pleasure, literally and figuratively, and I can't wait to do it again next weekend on spacedoutradio.com. Until next time, nighty-night, love and light to all my space cases out there. And don't forget, we are all in this together. Together we can make the world a little better. And together, my friends, we own the night. You guys have a wonderful week. I hope to see you guys back here next weekend. And if you'd like to come hang out with us in the after party, just come onto Skype, or you can even call on your cell phone at 970-335-9596. That's 970-335-9596. I had an awesome time with you guys. Take care of my yous, and I hope to see you back here next weekend.